lost when I feel like nothing. Always feel like I'm running. Both feel we're living worlds apart. It's fucked now, we lost in limbo. Remembering what you said though, and I asked you if we'd make it far. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt. I trust angels who fly away from you, and you've told me that we'd never die. Gave me so many reasons why we were meant to be. Then she said no, 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 no. No, 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 you should. I've earned the cost and now I've paid it. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, please don't go. I know my face a memory erasing. Been a few years since I heard your voice, yeah. Lost a few here, but it's not by choice, no. Girl, I see your face every day when I look through my phone. Can't delete all these memories, won't leave me alone. Hit my blind side, never saw you coming. You were so wild, but no, I was nothing. And I'm nothing now, nothing's changed. You know I'm just the same. Miss you now, but I hope that someday you explain. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt. I trust angels who fly away from you, and you've told me that we'd never die. Gave me so many reasons why we were meant to be.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? It's great to see you. Today is Sunday, January 22nd, 2023, 1:19 p.m. on the East Coast. How's everyone doing? It's good to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. It's good to see everyone. Thank you all for the kind words. So, we got a lot to talk about. My day is going good, Lee Ray. How's yours? Thank you all for the kind words. Very sweet of you. First, we are going to talk about a 76-year-old woman who her husband at a hospital. He is terminally ill, and I'm very torn on this because she's 76 and her husband, they made a pact 3 weeks ago. It happened yesterday. This happened in Daytona Beach, Florida. And they made a pact about 3 weeks ago. If he started to go downhill, he wanted her to get him and let him do it. Well, for some reason, he was maybe rushed into the hospital, and she went to the hospital. She took a GUN, and he was not strong enough to do it himself. Thank you for gifting the memberships. It's very sweet. Thank you. It means a lot. So she does it. In the hospital. In the hospital. Then you don't do it, Zen says. You're very welcome, Lee Ray. Thank you. It's very kind of you. And, it probably wasn't the right place or the right time. And it probably not the right way to do it. It seems like a hard way to exit. You know what I mean? But she wouldn't put the you know what down. And this is on the top floor where it's palliative care. These are terminally ill, rooms. And they had her hostage. They did not. They did not. Yup. Nosy. They didn't do that. They did it. They gave her a flashbang to distract her after several hours, but they had to get all of those people off the floor. Let's look at it. It's quite crazy, to be honest with you. It's really something.
Police Department. Early this morning at approximately 11:35 a.m., our officers responded to Advent Medical Center located at 301 Medical Memorial Parkway in Daytona Beach in reference to a person shot. Upon arrival, our officers were directed to the 11th floor where they encountered an elderly female who had apparently shot her terminally ill husband. I'm very, very proud of my officers and how they responded to this situation. My hostage negotiators were able to establish a dialogue with the wife, and that dialogue lasted until approximately 3 p.m., where we were finally able to take her into custody.
Did she say why she did it?
Yes. So apparently, because he was terminally ill, they had a conversation about it, and they actually planned this approximately 3 weeks ago, that if he continued to take a turn for the worse, that he wanted her to end this. So obviously we're unsure how she brought that gun into the hospital, but this was planned.
There are traitors amongst you.
Oh my God, we got a new member, Shannon. Welcome to the fam, Shan. Welcome, my dear. Welcome. Thank you so much. Please welcome our new family member, Shannon. Welcome. So, yes, we got more to talk about. Ugh. Someone put she shouldn't have resorted to this effort, and I agree with that. I totally agree with that. If he was in the hospital, and people's like, well, how did he get, or how did she get in there with a GUN, right? And I'm thinking, when I go to the hospital, is there security? Some hospitals there are, right? That you have to bring in a metal detector, but there's some hospitals you don't, that I've been to. Yeah. Hospital Star says hospitals doesn't have a metal detector. I'm thinking of one hospital that I know of that does. But every other one, I'm thinking, no. Mm-mm. They're like, how did she get in there? I'm like, well, she just walked in. Nobody checks me at the hospital, Terry says. I really thought, yeah, now maybe in Florida. Maybe in Florida they have this, thing, but that's also Florida, right? Florida is kind of a mind of its own, to say the very least. Now, some of you guys may notice that the writing is backwards. I have to do that to.
Year-old woman who you're about to see right here is in police custody tonight facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. That's after police say that she shot and killed her own terminally ill husband at Advent Health Hospital in Daytona Beach. Police say that Ellen Gilland shot 77-year-old Jerry Gilland as part of what was supposed to be a murder-suicide pact. West 2's Haley Crumholm walks us through the weeks leading up to the shooting and what happened next.
It took hostage negotiators hours, and ultimately police say Gillen did not put the gun down, so they had to resort to using a distraction device, a flashbang, and hitting her with a beanbag. Daytona Beach police got the call around 11:30 for someone shot on the 11th floor of Advent Health.
Obviously, we're unsure how she brought that gun into the hospital, but this was planned.
Police Chief Jakari Young says because the husband, Jerry Gilland, was terminally ill, he and his wife, Ellen, made a pact about 3 weeks ago to go through with the murder-suicide if Jerry continued to take a turn for the worse.
Apparently, the goal was for him to do it, but he did not have the strength. So she had to carry it out for him.
Hostage negotiators spoke with Ellen Gilland for hours as neighboring rooms on the 11th floor were cleared.
This was somewhat of a logistical nightmare, which is why, again, I'm very, very proud of my team, because that 11th floor is made up of terminally ill patients. So pretty much all the patients on that floor are on ventilators.
He says they didn't have room to evacuate the entire floor, but says Gilland never left the room where the shooting happened. Chief Young says she never threatened to shoot any officers, but she never put the gun down.
So we would have to assume that, you know, if we were to rush in there, or we didn't effectively communicate, that it could have turned into a shootout situation.
So they had to use a device to distract her, so she dropped the gun.
It's called a flashbang that the SWAT team uses. They use it. It just makes a loud noise. It's like a, you know, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. So they threw in a flashbang to distract her, and luckily it worked.
They also hit Gilland with a beanbag, and she was ultimately taken into custody. Gilland was taken to the Daytona Beach Police Department after she was taken into custody around 3 p.m. before she was set to be transferred to the Volusia County Jail. In Daytona Beach, Haley Crumholm, West 2 News.
Tonight, we're still working to determine if the hospital did have metal detectors and how that woman may have gotten a gun into her husband's hospital room. Meanwhile, Advent Health is responding to tonight's shooting with this statement saying, quote, "We're devastated by the tragedy that unfolded at the Advent Health Daytona Beach campus today. Our prayers are with those impacted, and we are grateful for the Daytona Beach Police Department in helping to ensure the safety of our patients, team members, and visitors."
So Debbie says, just watched my dad die. I'm very sorry, Debbie. A very painful death of cancer and asking for a gun. I can understand her actions. So, you know, I understand that there is a thing called, in a few states, it is called assisted unaliving yourself, right? And it's where, like, the doctor will give you, certain doctors, very clear about that, will give you a cocktail of barbiturates, usually, and you kind of go off to sleep. I know Oregon is one of the states that, you know, we know that does it. And, you know, I understand that that is, you know, I'm very conflicted. I'm just very conflicted because on a spiritual level, you know, I don't agree, but I also have worked in a funeral home. I volunteer for hospice when I can. I have seen people dying of cancer. My father-in-law, as a matter of fact, it'll be 2 years next month. And it is horrible. It's horrible. So put a 1 in the chat if you agree with something like the state of Oregon does, and put a 2 in the chat if you don't agree with the assisting part. And the assisting part is, by law, they have to be able to do it. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, Amy, you're exactly right. Yeah, you can't give it. They have to be. Now, before that, I don't know. I think it was maybe 2013, maybe 2014. There was, I'm sorry, spread love. Cancer is an evil, evil, evil thing. Too morally, I can't accept a DNR. Undecided. Yeah, it's a very controversial subject. It's a very heavy subject. I'm on that wall. I'm having a hard time with it as well. I lost my godmother's 4 days ago to cancer. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's very evil. It's very evil. Now, but I was saying in 2013 or 2014, there was, her name was Brittany. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Let me find it. Brittany Maynard. Here we go. This is what her name was. Let me show you this. Maybe some of you guys will remember this. We're going to look at this together. I had no plans of. So this is Brittany Maynard. It was 2014. Okay. Can y'all see this? Okay, perfect. She was a beautiful bride, just gotten married, and she became an American activist in terminal cancer, and she decided how she would end her own, you know what? And she said, quote, when the time seems right, she was an advocate for the legalization of assisted unaliving yourself for the terminally ill. Now, she had a very rare form of brain cancer. And she had just gotten married. Let's see here. And now her husband goes all around the world, for that matter, you know, in America as well, just everywhere. And he honors, in his words, his wife by saying that he wanted, you know, Brittany wanted to go out on her own terms. And so she moved to Oregon. And that is when you know, she decided to, you know, do it on her own. Okay, here we go. The Brittany Fund. Let's look at this. Let's see here. Videos. Here we go.
The thoughts that go through your mind when you find out you have so little time is everything that you need to say to everyone that you love. So after getting married is when I first started experiencing the headaches, and they were quite severe. And I didn't understand them because I had never had anything like that before in my life. Right when I was diagnosed, my husband and I were actively trying for a family, which is heartbreaking for us both. And then I was diagnosed this past New Year's. We went away to the wine country for kind of a New Year's Eve celebration, and by Jan 1, the following day, I was diagnosed with cancer and told I was terminally ill. I was told I had a grade 2 astrocytoma, and was told anywhere from 3, maybe 5, up to 10 years to live. I have to tell you, when you're 29 years old, being told you have that kind of timeline still feels like you're being told you're going to die tomorrow. 70 days post-op, I went in for another MRI and was told I had had a grade change. They were looking and saying it looks like grade 4, which is the worst and most aggressive form of brain cancer. It's called a glioblastoma. So that was a major shock to my system and the system of my family, because it went from having potentially years of time to being told I had like 6 months. My parents spent a couple months, they just wanted to search for a miracle.
In the beginning, I hoped for everything. I hoped that they had just the wrong x-rays, the wrong set of scans. It was all just a big clerical mishap. Your brain will do really strange things to you when you don't want to believe something. You will come up with fairy tales.
I don't wake up every day and look at it. It's in a safe spot, and I know that it's there when I need it. I plan to be surrounded by my immediate family, which is my husband and my mother and my stepfather and my best friend, who's also a physician, and probably not much more people. And I will die upstairs in my bedroom that I share with my husband, with my mother and my husband by my side, and pass peacefully with some music that I like in the background.
Between suffering or being allowed to decide when enough is enough, it just, to me, makes it provides a lot of relief and comfort that, okay, that option is there if and when we decide, or she decides that it's time.
I can't even tell you the amount of relief that it provides me to know that I don't have to die the way that it's been described to me that my brain tumor would take me on its own.
Death with dignity allows for people who are in the predicament of facing a lot of suffering, that they can decide when enough is enough.
Brittany's always been kind of bigger than life. She's kind of a wanderlust, and she's always liked exciting things, adrenaline rush. She's liked traveling. She's always been precocious and very, very bright. And anything she set her mind to, she did.
Since becoming ill, I have traveled and continued. My husband and I took a beautiful trip to Yellowstone. It was exquisite. And then I went with my best friend to Alaska, and we went to Denali National Park, and we went to Seaward and Kenai Fjords and kayaked up to the glaciers. And then I met my mother in Juneau, and we took this spectacular boat trip. Before I pass, I'm hoping to make it to the Grand Canyon, because I've never been. And that's all I can do, is set little goals like that. And all those things make every day worthwhile.
My hope now is that my daughter can live her life the way she wants to, that she can make the decisions that she wants to, that she can be who she is, which is this very autonomous, bright, well-read, well-traveled person who loves adventure. She's kind of got me into this thing where now we've agreed to meet. And so I'm going to go on a traveling adventure. And this place I'm kind of scared to go to, Machu Picchu. A lot of climbing, but she said she'd meet me there. And so damn it, I'll go.
I hope to enjoy however many days I have left on this beautiful earth and spend as much of it outside as I can, surrounded by those I love. I hope to pass in peace. The reason to consider life and what's of value is to make sure you're not missing out. Seize the day. What's important to you? What do you care about? What matters? Pursue that. Forget the rest.
She has always stuck with me. I've always remembered her story. No, Patty, we're still talking about it. We are still talking about it. But yeah, her name is the Brittany Fund.org if you want to go anywhere. And you can send a note to Brittany's husband, Dan Diaz. He is a phenomenal man. Like I said, he still goes all over the world and talks and educates people on this. So, it kind of, this story kind of is she still here? No, she passed away quite a long time ago. And that was, I think she passed away in 2014. 2014. Yeah. Yeah. A brand new bride and everything. So, when I think of this old lady, who was in Florida, right? And she made a pact with her husband. I have compassion for her, but I do think she went about the wrong way. Hello, Susan. Good to see you, hon. I think she went about the wrong way of doing it, but also in times of desperation, people and trauma, people are not thinking clearly, to say the least, right? So we have Florida woman 76 shot her 77-year-old terminally ill husband after barricading herself inside Daytona Beach hospital room in planned, what, and now faces first-degree murder. So her name is Ellen Gilland. She's accused of her husband, who was terminally ill. So it says a woman fatally her terminally ill husband inside a Florida hospital on Saturday and then barricaded herself in her room for 4 hours before surrendering in an ultimately failed murder. I can't say it on here. Ellen Gillard, 76, told officers that her 77-year-old husband, Jerry Gillard, had been ill for some time, and they had planned on doing this together. After the, her husband At about 11:30 a.m., she refused to come out until about 3:30 p.m. after negotiating with police. Afterward, it is revealed Gillen had planned to turn the you-know-what on herself, in, but she couldn't go through with it, said the Daytona Beach police chief, Jakari E. Young, rather. Apparently, because he was terminally ill, they had a conversation about the actual planned this approximately 3 weeks ago, that if he continued to take a turn for the worst, he wanted her to end this. Young said, obviously, we're unsure how she brought the you-know-what inside the hospital, which is what we was talking about earlier. McAllister said no charges were immediately announced, but she was taken into local jail Saturday afternoon. As Young acknowledged, Ellen Gillard could face first-degree murder charges. Young said the plan was that Jerry Gillard was originally going to do this thing to himself, but he was so ill that he didn't have the strength. It's a tragic circumstance because it just shows you that none of us are immune from the trials and tribulations of life, Young added. Ellen Gillard did not harm herself and no one else was wounded. Quote, even after the initial you-know-what, she never tried to get up and leave, so everything was confined to the room, Young said. At no time were any of the hospital staff threatened or any of the patients. Part of the police, part of the hospital was evacuated, and some doctors, nurses, and others took cover in locked closets and rooms. And this is the police chief. This is the hospital that it took place, and it was, up on one of the higher floors. He says it was a logistical nightmare to evacuate the patients on the floor, all of whom are on ventilators. Police were ultimately able to secure Gillen by distracting her with a flashbang device and a beanbag gun, according to the New York Times. Quote, she was very sad, Young said. This is obviously it's a tough situation, noting that Gillard had become depressed because of her husband was terminally ill. Advent Health officials did not immediately respond to an email seeking comment. Police said at the hospital had resumed normal operations. So, I wonder how long they were married. For her husband, she is a hero. Objection says, interesting. I hope her family can get her an amazing lawyer. She can't die in jail. Interesting. I feel bad for her because she left with the pain and only wanted to honor her husband's wishes. Yeah, I mean, yes, L. Bailey, this was a plan that if he was to get worse in the next, little bit of time, then they would plan this. That's what I was wondering, if her age and depression caused this. Yeah, I mean, clearly, I don't think, I to me, it's just where it happened, but also, if she did this at home the way she did it, they may have not have believed her as well, right? You have to think of it that way too. If she was home and she just said, oh, well, he wanted to be, taken out. It doesn't sound like a hard time for a plan. seemed he decreased quickly. Yeah, it was about a plan for 3 weeks, as he kind of took the turn for the worst in the last 3 weeks. So, we'll definitely continue to follow this, as to see what kind of charges that she may or may not get. What are your thoughts? Do you think she should yep, we got a new member. Yep. We got a new member. Yep. Welcome to the fam. Yep. Thank you, my love. You're very kind. Very kind. Andrea says, just my opinion, mind you, not in every situation, but I believe miracles happen every day again. This is not in every case, so I can't be on board with it respectfully. Understandable, Andrea. Absolutely. Absolutely. I am very conflicted. I'm very conflicted with this because I get both. I get both. But my Uncle Funny was terminally, he had come home, went upstairs. Oh, wow. Wow. Go back to it. I can completely understand her reference to quality of life. Yes. Yeah, well, she said, if I recall right, that she wanted to go out on her own terms, that there was no hope in, what the kind of illness that she had. So, I mean, sometimes, it's just a cruel thing. I mean, my God, I mean, for those of us that have been through someone that is terminally ill, there comes a time where you just pray God takes them so they're not suffering anymore. You hate to see them go, but you really hate to see them in that state. On the other hand, it's not a place to play God. Absolutely. I completely get it and understand it. I hate to compare it to euthanasia with our pets, but it's done to end their suffering. So why wouldn't it be an option for people as well? Nobody should have to suffer. Yeah, and to be honest with you, dogs and decor, I think in the future, this will be a more common thing. Like if there is, it's like really, really terminal. That's absolutely true, Debbie. And if this is, you're an adult and you can make this decision, that's a decision for you and I guess your family, to discuss. It's controversial. It's a difficult subject all the way around, and it's not right for everybody. Yes, obsessed with true crime. I did. I did hear about the last. Now it's more the shoot. You know what? Last night, it's more about. I think it was more of a domestic issue, if I'm correct. Yes. Well, I think I've got it here. Here, I'll show you about it. We'll just go over it if you haven't heard of it real quick. So, hold on. California mass, leaves at least 10 dead, others injured at Lunar New Year festival. Suspect is still at large. They're still looking for this guy. A suspect remains at large for at least 10 people were killed and multiple others were injured in a mass, at a ballroom dance club in Monterey Park, California, late Saturday in an area where people were gathered to celebrate the Lunar New Year, authorities said. Captain Andrew Meyer from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Homicide Bureau confirmed early Saturday that 10 victims were pronounced dead at the scene and 10 additional victims were taken to local hospitals in various conditions ranging from stable to critical. Meyer said the suspect, whom authorities earlier identified as a male, fled the scene after the and remains on the loose. No description of the suspect was immediately available. People were, quote, pouring out of the location screaming when officers arrived at the dance ballroom around 10:30, Meyer said, adding the officers entered the club as firefighters treated the wounded. Meyer said no further information on the firearm used was available at this time. He said it's too early in the investigation to know whether the GUNMAN knew any of the victims or whether it was a hate crime. I believe now that they're saying it's not a hate crime, that it is purely more of a domestic thing, but the man was really, really? Let me check. Okay, let's check Twitter. Okay, let's see. Let me just check something real quick. Okay, that's not it. Second after mass. Let me find out. Event after mass. Look here.
That there's an incident that may be related. We're not quite there yet, but it's definitely on our radar screen, where a male Asian suspect walked into a dance hall, and he walked in there with a firearm, and some individuals wrestled the firearm away from him, and that individual took off. Now, some witnesses in that area are describing a white cargo van. We don't know, though, at this time, if it is connected. That white van should be considered a van of interest at this point.
I thought the comments from the sheriff about the second event were really fascinating. So we know they have a weapon in custody from that event. Doesn't sound like it was fired there, but that could certainly, with ballistic analysis, could connect that person and that gun to the prior murders in Monterey Park. I'm sure they're working those angles right now, but that's probably the most significant investigative development that we've heard so far.
Okay, I'm looking here on Twitter. Let's see what Twitter has to say right now. Latest. 712 in Inglewood, 148. SWAT standoff, containment near Hawthorne Boulevard. Sheriff Department says this may be connected to the mass, in Monterey Park. Vehicles matched similar description. White van, LAST. Arrow is overhead assisting. Let's see if there's any videos anywhere.
Standing as of this moment. Our very preliminary description has been described as a male Asian, and that's from the scene here in Monterey Park. And it's taken us a while, and please be patient with us, because as we're interviewing victims and witnesses, we've gotten different descriptions of
Okay,
one suspect.
KTLA. Okay,
So
let's
when I say
go.
it's preliminary, please again be patient with us. There is a male suspect that fled the scene.
Give me a second.
Many believe humanity has free will, that we control our choices.
27 seconds.
But when you see an offer this good for a vehicle this reliable, is it free will or natural instinct to get to a Toyota dealer immediately? Philosophy can be hard, but choosing a Toyota is easy.
We make it easy. Toyota, let's go places.
Monitoring police frequencies, listening to the scanners. What was the initial reaction like when they first mentioned that a white van had been spotted in Torrance?
You know, a lot of times, Doug, we hear talk about a situation like this that it got our attention for sure. The sheriff's department talking about it. We did hear mention that it was related to the Monterey Park mass shooting, but we haven't been able to confirm that. We have an airship overhead that my pilot, Mike Case, is talking to and trying to get further information. But at this point, it is unconfirmed. But they were discussing at one point that it might be or is related to the Monterey Park shooting.
Now, as we keep an eye on this scene, I want to sort of reset everything that we have learned since this mass shooting last night at 10:22 p.m. 10 people killed, 10 people injured in this shooting in a dance studio, a dance studio that was really very close in proximity to a Lunar New Year festival that had been going on all day long, ending around 9 in the evening, and then a short time later, this shooting. What we learned is that after the shooting, according to police, shooting was the first scene. Then another scene they responded to, an incident in Alhambra. They didn't confirm that it's related, but they've said it is possibly related. And what happened in that Alhambra scene, another dance studio, by the way, a man was disarmed with a firearm. And authorities responded to that, and that's where they mentioned a white van of interest and not a big suspect description, but seeming to stack up with the Monterey Park mass shooting, if indeed they are related. The firearm was recovered there, so authorities have it. And Doug, you asked former Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who's been giving us law enforcement perspective all morning long, what they'll do with that weapon. And he mentioned the ballistics that they'll be doing to try to, figure out who that belonged to and sort of those details, but they do have that firearm recovered there. And now, hours later,
he also mentioned that if in fact that firearm is registered to the suspect, it's almost as good as leaving their driver's license behind.
And now, meantime, we know also that they are interviewing authorities in this investigation, any witnesses, anything that they can, any information they can to get more on the suspect, who they were expecting to come out with a better description of. They said within a few hours, and that was in the 8 o'clock hour that we last had that press conference with the sheriff. And now here we are at 11:06, and we have this scene in Torrance. 30 miles away from the initial mass shooting. We don't have confirmation this is connected, but you heard Gil talking about the potential for that, or the unconfirmed reports of that possibility. And here's this white cargo van. We know there's a white van of interest, and this large police presence, and these armored vehicles on both sides of the white van.
And Gil, I'm very familiar with this area, and I know it's heavily populated. And like you mentioned, the Del Amo Mall, one of the largest malls around, just located across the street. Do you see that there are any shelter-in-place orders? I mean, obviously, we're looking at police with guns drawn. There should be at least an imminent danger to the surrounding public right there. Do you see that there are perhaps any other further lockdowns, even at the mall?
Well, Doug and Lauren, while we were on our way over here, I heard the
Thank you for your input, Littlefoot. Now get your foot out of your.
To the mall,
Sorry.
but also to the surrounding shopping centers on the west side and on the south side here. So it looks like this area is pretty much a ghost town. There's no movement in this area for at least a block. You can see cars at the top of the screen being diverted. I believe that's Ocean Avenue there, where cars are being diverted away from and westbound on Sepulveda. But really, this area is completely locked down. Traffic in all directions are trying to, cars are moving up and down the streets in both directions, but they're being turned around for about a block away from this scene. So yes, it appears that if there's anybody in those shopping centers, that they are either locked down or being escorted away from the, towards the north or the west side of these shopping centers to make sure everyone's safe.
And Gil, you mentioned the Del Amo Mall is right there, and I'm looking at the hours, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. So the mall would have just been opening, so it wasn't a situation where they would have had to shut the mall down. Also at this hour, important to note, we don't know a lot about the victims, and this was one of the worst mass shootings in memory. Borderline shooting years ago, 12 were killed. 10 killed in this, and some of those that are injured are in critical condition. So we don't have identities yet. We don't know the families that are grieving this morning, but we heard Annie Rose Ramos talking about the emergency center that they're urged to go to. And having covered, unfortunately, mass shootings in the past, those are just horrible situations, typically where loved ones wait for news. It's just, there's such a huge tragedy that's happened that our local communities are dealing with as this investigation goes on into the manhunt. And interestingly, despite the suspect on the loose this morning, we heard the sheriff say that he did not think that a shelter-in-place order was necessary, that he thought that that they had enough resources in place.
I wonder if he's going. I wonder if
we
he
don't know motive. They said that they're looking at
himself,
everything from whether this was a hate crime to if it stemmed from a domestic dispute. We just don't know. But former LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva pointed out that it was two dance studios involved, and so that potentially it could have been something more targeted. Yeah. Gil, can you see anything down there? Any activity going on? Are they saying anything over a loudspeaker?
Yeah, Lauren, if that's for Gil, we don't see any movement there around the vehicle other than the SWAT vehicles and some officers that are walking back and forth from their vehicles to talk to one another. Here's one that's moving their position. It's likely that they could bring in a third SWAT vehicle into the situation, and at some point they're going to try to flush whoever's in there out of the vehicle if they won't come out on their own. So a very tense situation here, but the police department does have it, looks like, well under control with those SWAT vehicles blocking in this van.
I don't see anyone there.
I'm looking out the window. I'm not going to move the camera, but I can talk about the mall, the Del Amo Fashion Center there. It looks like it's business as usual, at least the cars going in and out of the east side of the mall itself, but it's unclear if the southern part of the mall might be impacted because it's catty-corner to this event.
Yeah, and I can also tell you, again, familiar with that area, that across the street there's a PetSmart, there's a Walmart, which is on the smaller side of Walmart's, and there's a Hobby Lobby, which fortunately is
a
closed
tidbit
on
crazy.
Sundays.
Welcome our new family member, guys.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing. We were hearing those initial
Thank you, my love.
calls about blocking off the driveways in and out of those mall or those parking lot areas here, and you can see no movement whatsoever.
I guess he's hiding in the van,
a lot of
or
vehicles
he's
in the parking lot there,
DAD in the van.
That's the northwest corner of the intersection, but
or he's in there shopping in the mall.
Further information here, they're talking about bringing additional units here to the scene. So we should be seeing more activity arriving shortly as the SWAT team and the Torrance police work to bring this to a peaceful end.
So we know that several investigations are involved in this in the crime scene over in Monterey Park. Because of that, through your experience, would they be responding to this scene as well if in fact they are connected?
Oh, definitely. We believe that will happen at some point. We should see possibly the investigators that we saw over at the other scene, some of them moving over here if it is indeed involved. But I do hear additional assets being talked about to be brought here to deal with the situation.
Gil, do we have any idea what led them to this van? Was it a parked van? Was there some kind of pursuit?
We haven't heard any detail like that, but just based on the way the police cars are situated there behind the vehicle, it looks like it may have been some sort of traffic stop. It looks like maybe the vehicle came off of Sepulveda, pulled into the parking lot here, and just stopped right there, and then it became a standoff, which in which case the person inside wouldn't come out, and the SWAT team was called in to secure the vehicle. So we should see more activity here shortly, but that's what it looks like firsthand here. It looks like maybe it was a traffic stop that led to the standoff.
Through your time above monitoring this situation, have you heard any communication between law enforcement and potentially somebody inside this white van?
I haven't heard that directly. They're moving around on several frequencies here. I do hear them doing a roll call to make sure all the Torrance police officers are accounted for and safe. But also they're talking about, like I said, bringing in additional assets. It might include another SWAT vehicle to deal with the person inside of that van there. But for now, we should see maybe even the fire department personnel arriving on scene as well.
And with this being, again, in speaking with former County Sheriff Alex Villanueva, telling us that LA County Sheriff's Department is the lead investigation on this matter, is it possible that Torrance Police is at orders to stand still, lay low until Sheriff's Department arrives?
Yeah, definitely. It appears that they made the initial contact. It was Torrance Police that were the lead on this. We call it the lead on it. They made the initial contact with whoever was in that van. And then they called for assets from the Sheriff's Department to assist them, bringing in the SWAT team here. So it looks like they are, secondary at this point to the Sheriff's Department's investigation.
We'll continue following this overhead. Gil, thank you. We'll keep looking at those live pictures. Just give a recap, too, of some of the reaction that we've had. LA County Supervisor Hilda Solis, she represents the San Gabriel Valley communities where this has impacted them. And this was the first she's seen of this Torrance scene. So she didn't have any information on if it was connected. She appearing at the press conference with authorities earlier in Monterey Park, talking about her concerns that it could potentially be a hate crime in Monterey Park.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Lauren. Gil, if you could pan up for a moment, I do believe that there was movement. Oh, no, that was from the SWAT vehicle. My bad. Sorry about that. I did see movement from the inside the SWAT vehicle.
Yeah, each SWAT vehicle will have multiple officers in there, and it's more than likely they're communicating through a loudspeaker to this person. Possibly, we've seen it at times in the standoffs with people in vehicles that they'll make contact via cell phone even. So we just don't know that yet if they're in touch with whoever's in there. But at this point, you can see by the posture of the Torrance Police, they're just basically standing guard there, secondary to what the SWAT team is doing.
Yeah, this is an evolving situation and a tense situation. The standoff underway in Torrance more than 12 hours after the mass shooting and some 30 miles away. In terms of what's happening with this investigation that we know, a suspect on the loose, not much of a description. Could this be where the suspect is or is suspected? We don't have it confirmed. We know that a white van of interest was connected to an Alhambra scene that is possibly connected to the mass shooting, but no firm confirmation on that. What remains, a suspect outstanding in the deadly mass shooting that killed 10 people in Monterey Park last night, just adjacent to a Lunar New Year celebration. That New Year celebration was supposed to continue today. It's been halted. It's been stopped for, understandably, out of respect for the victims and and the proximity. It's right in the middle of the crime scene. Other Lunar New Year festivities continuing, and Sheriff Luna saying that people should feel comfortable going to those today, as we know that people are celebrating that throughout our region. This, potentially the latest scene in this investigation for the shooting suspect, but not confirmed. And so we want to make that point too.
And at this point, as far as what's been released, we don't have a full description of the suspect. We were told we would get that later on in the day. Initially, it was told to us around 3:45 this morning that it was just a male. Then it was later discovered around 8 o'clock that it was an Asian male.
Between 30 and 52, we got a little bit of an age range.
But they weren't even clear at that point because they said they had varying descriptions of the suspect. So they were safe enough to, at least at that point, to release that it was an Asian male. Now you're saying, what was the age range again?
30 to 50 years old.
30 to 50 years old.
But not much is known. And, the descent being, reportable because there is concern over this being investigated as a hate crime, and the Monterey Park community, a predominantly Asian community, and that Lunar New Year celebration happening so close by. Those 10 victims, we don't know age ranges, we don't know much about them, but we don't know 5 female, 5 male. Gil, anything you can tell us from the scene? Is there any law enforcement that are starting to pour in? Any additional jurisdictions that you're seeing there, or reports about any kind of communication that's going on between that white cargo van and any of the units on scene?
Yes, at this point, no. I do hear them working on positioning their command post on the north side near the Hobby Lobby. I can tell you that the fire department's on scene as well at that command post, but that's the sheriffs were discussing the command post area that's being set up for this incident. Again, we did hear just a few minutes ago talk about bringing in additional assets here to deal with the situation in this white van. But at this point, it remains the same over the last maybe 10 minutes now.
Gil, through your experience, how much time would transpire before police or law enforcement, in this case, move in?
Well, it depends on the cooperation of the person in the van. If that person is talking, if that person is actively communicating with police, then it could be a short period of time, or it could be an extended period of time. But eventually, the SWAT team will, if that person is unwilling to come out, will go in and get that person out in one way or another. They will likely put in tear gas or pepper balls through the windows of the vehicle to try to get that person to come out, and then use other tactics as well if that doesn't work. But many times we've seen pursuits that end in a standoff like this. It'll take some time for the SWAT team to arrive and get in position like you see here. So it's very, I could say, pretty much a standard situation where they don't want the vehicle to continue driving. They have that locked in, and I believe a third SWAT vehicle would definitely assist in helping to put any kind of tear gas or any kind of less lethal rounds into the vehicle to force that person out.
The non-lethal ammo you speak of, the pepper spray, the tear gas, is that only used in a case where they believe the suspect is potentially armed?
That, and also if they're just refusing to come out, if they may not be armed, but they're just saying, no way, I'm not coming out, they'll eventually put those rounds into the vehicle to get that person to come out and surrender. And more often than not, it's very successful.
So it's been about nearly 3 hours since we last had an update from authorities. So we don't know exactly what is happening right here at this scene, but take a look at all that law enforcement that has responded to this white cargo van, helicopter flying overhead, those SWAT vehicles boxing in the white cargo van. We haven't seen activity inside. We don't know exactly what is going on inside that van. This, Gil, is showing us the area right near that Hobby Lobby you talked about, Doug, a shopping center with a Walmart, PetSmart, Staples. So, people that would be doing their Sunday errands or shopping, they won't be doing much, won't be getting much done. This is a large scene here and a large police presence responding to this torrent scene. Hawthorne and Sepulveda is where Gil says this is, about 30 miles from the Monterey Park mass shooting site in Monterey Park. And we don't know if it's connected, but we certainly know that that's a possibility given the reports that you're hearing, Gil.
And if you've ever traveled that strip in Torrance on Hawthorne, several businesses, both sides of the street, a very, very populated area, a lot of commerce along the way.
Yeah, very busy, and I can tell you that a group of people have gathered here fairly close to where this is happening. You can see behind the crime scene tape a lot of people maybe coming out of those businesses, or people just in the parking lot to realize there's a scene here and they're moved over here. That's pretty close to this scene, and we will likely see the police work to clear those people away, get them further away. But you know, at this point, we're seeing more and more SWAT members. Here's a couple of them walking down towards the scene. And like I said, more units and more assets coming in to deal with the situation.
Gil, I'm wondering if you can zoom into the windshield of that cargo van. Are there any bullet holes that we might see?
Yeah, let me come in a little closer if I can. Maybe you can tell better than me. It doesn't at this point appear to be the case unless you see something. It looks like both sides of the window, or the driver and passenger windows, I should say, are intact as well. I don't recall if there were rear windows on this van or not. When we got on scene, we were on that side, but quickly moved over to this side. So it's unclear if they have a visual in through the back or not. But I'm hearing now that they're bringing in a third Bearcat. It's one of the SWAT vehicles here to deal with the situation.
And that's something that could be, really interesting to see how they handle this situation at this point.
And they'd be bringing that in because they're even at this point with the vehicle boxed in, there's still concern over the possible escape.
It could be that they're going to bring in that Bearcat on one side of the vehicle or the other, probably right along where the driver or passenger side windows are, to be able to access that. I'm hearing them talking about that Bearcat right now, and they're just working on the logistics to get that vehicle here. But yeah, they're going to definitely come in on one of those sides to be able to get a better access and a better look into the vehicle as well.
Are those special units you're hearing about, is that through Torrance Police?
It's on a mutual frequency, and so it's a little difficult to tell. I believe it's the sheriff's talking about it, and not so much the Torrance Police, but I'll work to verify that.
I covered the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida some years ago, and they used a Bearcat actually as a battering ram to breach the side of the building to rescue patrons that were hiding in the bathroom at the time. So, we've seen the way that these armored vehicles have been used in past mass shooting, hostage situations.
I'm going to show you guys a picture real quick. You can still hear.
What exactly the response is with this white cargo van. We really haven't seen any movement or, discernible development.
This is the picture.
Since you first saw this overhead, although we did see.
He doesn't look like he's that big and bad. Just saying.
The white van, which was. Happened a short time after there was that
5'10", 150 pounds.
When we first caught eye of the scene.
That's right, and they'll likely bring in that third vehicle to one side or the other.
Just saying.
And what we don't see, what I haven't seen yet, but I imagine there likely is a police dog on scene. But in a situation where they feel that the person in the van is armed and dangerous, they may not deploy a dog if they were able to get the windows open or a door open.
That's the guy.
Hard to say right now what they have.
That's the guy.
What they're dealing with. But if indeed it's related to the Monterey Park shooting, then definitely they are.
That's true,
every,
Roxy.
Bit of protection for the officers in this situation and trying to hold or take care of the situation so that no one gets hurt.
And like you mentioned, Lauren, there could be
I like the way you think,
what exactly is going on. We haven't seen any movement from the cockpit of that van. We don't even know if there is a suspect inside. But it could be any of the above of what you mentioned. Anything from
how could there not be a suspect inside? If
hostage situation,
they was chasing him and they rammed
perhaps
into him.
Why Torrance Police at this point is proceeding so cautiously.
Gil, the people that are gathered nearby the scene, you get the sense that they are looky-loos and just trying to see what they can. Is our media staged there? What's the scene surrounding the the standoff?
Well, it's very interesting to see people this close to a situation like this. The police have their hands full right now. I'm sure that they're aware of the crowd that's gathering here. The best thing to do is just to completely stay away. Officers need to pay close attention to what's going on here. But as I said, a large group of looky-loos here in the parking lot that are very close, just right across the street from the van.
If you're just tuning in, it is 11:26, and we are covering the breaking news: a manhunt for a suspect wanted for a mass shooting in Monterey Park. 10 people killed, 10 others in the hospital in conditions ranging from stable to critical.
Y'all are
The shooting
cracking me
happened
up.
last night, 10:22, at a dance studio in Monterey Park in the downtown area, very close to where a Lunar New Year festival that attracts very many people would just have been wrapping up a short time earlier when chaos erupted. The community in Monterey Park shaken up. We have been hearing from residents all morning long, from our reporters, that they have just really been shaken, feeling like their community is safe typically, and they've never had anything like this happen, and now tragedy. A horrific tragedy.
Look, they're getting behind the.
What you're looking
Look,
at is
they're behind the
about
SWAT
30
truck.
miles away, and this is a scene in Torrance where a manhunt is going on now. You see the SWAT vehicles there in that white cargo van in the middle, as well as those police units all around. This is in a parking lot at Sepulveda and Hawthorne. It's right near the Del Amo Mall, if you're familiar with that area. And this, our Sky 5 spotted and went to this scene based on some unconfirmed reports that this is possibly connected to the mass shooting in Monterey Park. And of note, the sheriff earlier, LA County Sheriff Robert Luna, he had said that at a second scene in Alhambra that is also possibly connected to the Monterey Park mass shooting, where a man was disarmed with a firearm from yet another dance studio. They recovered the gun, and they described a white cargo van of interest. And here you see a white cargo van now, and there's some police activity you can see also behind that SWAT vehicle, Doug.
Yeah, and it's also important to point out that tragedy may have been averted for a second time, because we do know, according to Sheriff's Department, that the gunman did walk into the Alhambra dance club. He was armed, and there were patrons inside that were able to wrestle that weapon away from him, which, by the way, they describe as not being an assault rifle.
That's correct. So look, and you can see the dogs there. You can see the police, and they are in protective body armor. And it's not clear exactly what the next
Welcome
steps
to my
are gonna be on
channel,
the ground,
Steph.
But Gil has mentioned that they were calling in other units, and we know LA County Sheriff's Homicide is in charge of the mass shooting investigation, and of course Monterey Park PD also involved there, and the FBI has been called in to assist. President Biden, we know, has been briefed on the mass shooting, and he said that the FBI is offering their full support, and we've seen those assets on scene in Monterey Park. So, Gil, any changes where you are that you can see? It looks like some, officers are sort of just standing around but out of their vehicles and behind that SWAT vehicle.
I wonder if he's
drone
done
flying. You see the drone
something.
right there?
Oh, look at that drone.
Yeah, zooming in on the drone that's flying around. They're trying to get as many eyes inside that van as they can. We saw more team members from the SWAT team arrive. There's a
I
canine
bet you
unit
anything
now
he
on
did
scene.
it
You
to
can see them. They're
himself.
under
He did
restraint.
something to himself.
But
That's why
they
they're
try to
standing
get as
out,
many
in
eyes
my
into
opinion.
that van
Maybe
to
I'm
see
wrong.
exactly what they're dealing with, along with that drone that's very accessible there. They can get down and look right through the windows themselves. We did see the Sheriff's Department helicopter stop and go into hover there in the front of the van and then continue their orbit. So that's a little unusual to see that happen. But at this point, we're going to break for fuel and then be back on scene in a short time from now.
Gil, thank you for providing that vital information. We'll be back with you shortly.
Okay.
Hold on, let me see if there's any other.
We'll be right back with more breaking news.
Let's see if anybody else is playing it. Give me 2 seconds.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect.
Let's see if there's anybody else streaming it here on Twitter. To Twitter. Stand.
What?
What is it? ABC 7. Oh, here we go.
What the police presence plans to do here, but this, as you were mentioning, Mark, this is a presence that is most likely going to grow here in the next few minutes or so.
Yeah, checking information that's being sent to us by our colleagues here at ABC 7, they do believe that the suspect is barricaded in that van. Again, there's only so much we can see even from our vantage point, but they believe, police do, that this is the Monterey Park shooting suspect, the mass shooting suspect that is barricaded in the back of that van. As we took a closer look and zooming in a bit more, again, I just don't see any movement in the front of the van. It was our information that a weapon was recovered overnight. There were two scenes that played out last night. There was the deadly shooting scene.
Are monitoring what the police presence plans to do here, but this, as you were mentioning, Mark, this is a presence that is most likely going to grow here in the next few minutes or so.
Yeah, checking information that's being sent to us by our colleagues here at ABC 7, they do believe that the suspect is barricaded in that van. Again, there's only so much we can see even from our vantage point, but they...
Hold on, I thought that was a video, but it's or live feed, but it was a video. So I'm a dummy. I got it right here. Hold on. Watch live. This should feed in just a second.
Almost identical. So in this case, I don't see the sheriffs coming in and relieving them, so to speak. They may come in with additional assets. Also, Torrance PD has the canine teams, which they may end up deploying a canine dog too.
We do have one on standby. In fact, good timing there with the video. You see the canine there next to that SUV, that patrol SUV. So there is a canine that is on scene, ready to go in if necessary. At this point, we've been talking, using the word speculation. Let's assume they are about to get their guy. How much do we look into the past, into social media, into what this suspect had revealed, you know, what we knew and maybe what we missed?
That is all something investigators will do. Unfortunately, it may be after the fact. However, they will build up a full workup of the suspect involving social media, criminal history, mental history, everything.
Just to give you, for those of you who are watching, just to give you an update on where we are with our coverage, you're taking a look at video from earlier on the right side of your screen, but we are waiting for our chopper to get back over this situation so we can get live pictures. We also have a reporter there at the scene we should be talking to hopefully in the next few minutes or so. On the left side of your screen, you're seeing that podium at the Monterey Park Civic Center, where we've also just gotten word that the press conference with updated information has been pushed back a few minutes to roughly around 11:45. So that is when we're hoping to get that new information into our newsroom.
Yeah, during the news conference that we had around the 8:30 hour, so yeah, that is 3 hours ago, we heard from the LA County Sheriff, we heard from the mayor of Monterey Park, we heard from the police chief of Monterey Park, we heard briefly from the assistant director in charge of the FBI. He did not speak much as to the investigation, but clearly a joint investigation, lots of mutual aid being poured into this, including the ATF. And Bruce, the ATF going to play a big role in this as well. How does their role differ from, say, you know, the local agencies?
The ATF will be involved in tracing this gun. Was it purchased legally? Is it a ghost gun? How did this person get the gun? That's what the ATF is going to be involved in doing. And ultimately, the FBI will be involved in possibly prosecuting him under federal crimes.
Okay, as you're speaking, I'm just keeping my eye on the pending news conference in Monterey Park. That is on standby, nothing occurring there yet. We believe that may now be about 10 minutes away. I'm going to speak to our producers and ask if we have that ground shot from Torrance as well. There it is, the
There.
ground shot. Okay, yeah, it's freezing a bit. That's why we've been holding off on that. We do have a ground crew that is at that Torrance location, but that answers our question. You can see why there was a bit of freezing there with that camera shot.
But in the meantime, we are also, again, looking at the first images of our suspect from this morning. It's on the left side of your screen. This was just released a few minutes ago. People have been wondering who this person is and what the motive was. We simply do not know at this point in time. That hasn't been released by sheriff's deputies or investigators, but we do know this is the person they are trying to get a hold of. This is someone in a black beanie, a black leather jacket, and
additional units requested, multiple victims, gunshot wounds.
we are hearing some of that audio recording from
When
when
that
that shooting first occurred last night. That was from the police scanners overnight. You're taking a look at some video from the aftermath of this, with the victims being transported to the hospital.
Yeah, you can imagine always that chaos and that initial response in what information was going out, what those initial responding officers found when they arrived there in the parking lot, victims pouring out of the dance hall, then to go inside and find those 10 victims who were killed. They died inside that dance hall at the location in Monterey Park. Bruce Thomas, I know a lot of our viewers are not fans of the hate crime discussion, because what does it matter? And the fact here that you have an Asian male suspect potentially connected to a crime against victims who are predominantly Asian American.
Yeah, I mean, hate crime, it's a title. It is something, you know, that we in law enforcement have come to use, just as we use the word terrorist, domestic terrorism. It is more.
Okay, I got some feeds from on the ground right now.
Opens up local law enforcement, local cities, to be able to get some additional training money. And it's just a wrong on somebody.
All pedestrians in the parking lot. All pedestrians in the parking lot.
I think he's dead. Awaiting a press conference in just a moment. About 5 minutes out, they're saying. Okay, here we go. Go back to the stream.
Point in time, so people have been trying to figure out why that specific dance studio and why so close to a Lunar New Year celebration.
Absolutely. I want to point out here, we now have that ground shot up, and it is transmitting from Torrance, and great work there, zooming in.
The police don't seem like,
this is a live
you know,
image there.
they're
This
like
is
protecting
Sepulveda
themselves that well. You know,
and
they're
City
walking
of Torrance.
around.
It is
So
not at the Del Amo Fashion
I
Center.
think we know what happened.
Across the way from that location, but that just gives you perspective on where exactly this is occurring for those folks who may live or travel in that area. Sepulveda and Hawthorne is the location.
And it looks like, if you see behind the Bearcat, they have a drone that has been taking a look inside the vehicle. So, Bruce, before you were talking about robots that would, you know, scan this area just to make sure that none of the officers got too close to any sort of threat. But now we're seeing a drone right behind that Bearcat taking a look at what might be moving around inside the cargo van.
Yeah, and even as we say that as well, vehicles are kind of restaging, moving back a bit. It leads you to question, are they about to move in? A lot of movement here with officers on the ground. Bruce, why do they typically do that? We're seeing a lot of vehicles back off here.
To case in point with the drone, most law enforcement agencies, SWAT operations, have now used the drone to get a very safe observational platform. So that's what you see. Torrance PD does have one. The Sheriff's Department has deployed it. Torrance PD has deployed it before, so that's what they're doing. To your second question, they are moving the regular officers out of position, and those officers will be replaced by SWAT operators, just because they're well-versed in this type of situation.
And what will those SWAT operators be doing next, possibly, as they move into their location?
They practice this, so they have plan A, B, and C. And what they're going to do is they probably will deploy some sort of less lethal weaponry to break the window of the van. A van is a very complex situation because there's not many windows like a vehicle or a car. You've got the front windows inside, driver's side, and that's about it. So, and the front windshield is very problematic to break through. So they will probably deploy something like a pepper ball glass shattering round, which they have, and that will break the window. And then they will introduce maybe a CS gas, pepper spray, or tear gas into the vehicle to get the suspect to leave.
You mentioned breaking the window. It's hard to tell from this perspective, but the driver's side rear view mirror on this van, it's hard to tell if that is shattered or not. It does appear that the glass is broken. I want to thank our photographer on the ground for putting on the extender there, but that sure looks like it's shattered, whether it's the rear view mirror or if it's a reflection of the front windshield.
Yeah, it's certainly taking some damage, possibly from that Bearcat hitting it head on. We're not quite sure what led up to the vehicles being positioned in this
Those
way.
Bearcats are like a tank.
We don't have that answer. We questioned it. We didn't know if there was some type of
Almost like
leading to this
Brinks
location.
truck or
If that is the case, we are
like a
not
safe on
aware
wheels.
of that, but maybe that would help explain that situation, that maybe some type of shots, non-lethal, were shot earlier to break that window or from the impact, as Irene mentioned. So just wanted to point that out since we could at least see it from our ground camera. Those officers, the SWAT team on standby, waiting to make their move. A little concerning that in the distance behind this Bearcat, you can see members of the public that are still kind of in the vicinity of the area. I saw as we were pushing in that there were plainclothes citizens that were kind of in the area somewhat watching what was going on. Not the best location to be in, knowing the risk of what we're looking at here, as officers are essentially waiting to make their move. The time right now is 11:42 as we are streaming live here on Eyewitness News. We are watching and standing by for a news conference from the city of Monterey Park. That is not occurred yet, of course. You can see the podium. They were initially scheduled to give us an update at 11:30. That has been pushed back to 11:45. If that is on schedule, that is now just 2 minutes away. As I speak, I get an update. 11:50 is the new update. So we are 7 minutes away from that potentially occurring.
Bruce, I have a question. I mean, earlier we were talking about how we didn't want any of the officers getting too close to the vehicle because we value human life. We value also the suspect's life at this point in time. But it seems like there is almost a change in the body language here, where officers before were shielded behind doors. They had their guns drawn. They had the canines ready. But now it feels like they're a lot closer to the vehicle. They're simply walking around. It doesn't seem like they feel as though there was as much of a threat as before.
Do you think that he may be incapacitated if he's in the van?
He might be. They may have heard something that may have led them to believe that the suspect may have taken their own life. I mean, that's a possibility.
I'm
too.
hearing
And
that
that's one
this
of the
was a
things that
jealousy.
they plan for also.
Jealousy.
The other
He
thing,
did this
too,
because of
is,
jealousy,
they've got the
moving this.
suspect, and he is not going anywhere. So in this case, for the suspect to, we believe, will have a weapon or may have an additional weapon, it's kind of hard for him to engage the officers with a van that has solid panels on basically 3/4 of it. So that's where the posture changes a little bit.
We now have the third Bearcat arriving on scene. This one specifically is with the LA County Sheriff's Department. But as you mentioned a moment ago, Bruce, a lot of these agencies, when it comes to SWAT, they train and work together.
Yeah, the Sheriff's Department is the lead agency for SWAT tactics. They even train Torrance. They train Beverly Hills PD, other agencies, and including the FBI and the Secret Service have trained with them.
And certainly that collaboration to make sure that all agencies, when responding to these incidents, have the same approach. And then when they come together in a situation like this, they're all on the same page, and that goes a far way.
Yes, it does. Even to the point where the verbiage and the wording of commands and things are universal.
Very interesting to see what they will be doing next. They're huddled in behind that Bearcat, which is very close to the vehicle itself. It looks like Torrance PD has also backed away from that specific location. Again, we're about 5 minutes away or so from hearing an update on this barricade situation with the cargo van here in Torrance, but the press conference should be happening out of Monterey Park at the City Hall facility there in just a few minutes.
I don't know. The more I see here, it kind of seems surprising that they could hold a press conference when we are unresolved on the situation on the left of your screen. If we don't know for sure what is inside the van, I just question what type of information law enforcement from Monterey Park is going to be able to provide. Does that strike you as odd, and maybe this may continue to be pushed back? Bruce, what do you think?
Yeah, my guess is they are going to continue to push it back until this operation has concluded. You can't, once you open the door, so to speak, and say, well, law enforcement officers from Torrance and the Sheriff's Department are conducting a felony traffic stop on a suspect vehicle, and the suspect has barricaded himself in. Well, we all know where the next questions are going to come, and we don't have answers to them. So my guess is, being a former PIO, I would push this back until this operation is concluded.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see that they had scheduled that press conference at 11:30, and now they're pushing it back further and further. And as we wait for this this situation here with the suspect in the van to conclude.
At this point, at 11:47, I got to assume that most of our viewers, including here in our streaming coverage, are somewhat up to speed on what's been occurring. So many people get those breaking news alerts and woke up to the news this morning. But as we are now some 13 hours into the investigation, multiple hours into our live coverage, you got to assume a lot of people are up to speed here, but all of this stemming from the overnight or late night mass shooting in Monterey Park, in which 10 individuals were killed, another 10 more that were injured in that shooting, and then a secondary incident that was essentially thwarted in the city of Alhambra, both of them being dance studios where people were out celebrating, unknown if they were competing, but celebrating with dance last night on a Saturday night when all of this unfolded.
And at the dance studio in Alhambra, witnesses say they saw the suspect leaving in that white cargo van that we were seeing on the left side of our screen on our live pictures. So that is the vehicle that they were describing to law enforcement. Something of note, we just got word as well that the press conference has actually been pushed back even more to noon. So we're waiting for more details again as the law enforcement tries to figure out what they want to do in this situation here.
And perhaps waiting for these updates. No doubt they're getting information fed to them. And oftentimes we know that they do watch news reports as well to get the information as far as what they're seeing. Someone there from the Sheriff's Department was speaking, just testing the mic. Yeah, just testing the mic to make sure everything is good to go there. But no doubt at this point, as we suspected, things going to continue to push back until we get all of the factual information confirmed from this location in Torrance. You can see the broad perimeter here that has been set up in the area of Sepulveda and Hawthorne in the city of Torrance. And speaking to that impact, that we talked about earlier, the fact that this isn't just one community now, you have, a wide-ranging area that's been impacted by this event from the South Bay all the way over to the initial shooting location in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, Monterey Park, and then it moved to Alhambra, and now we are in Torrance this morning. We've just gotten word that Air 7 has reestablished its shot right above, so we can get a better perspective of the Bearcat vehicles surrounding the cargo van and the SWAT members on the other side of that Bearcat. We aren't, again, seeing much movement coming from inside that white vehicle.
And the video there on the right side of your screen is the LA County Sheriff's helicopter that is on scene in Torrance. So we were talking about the the distance between the two investigations. So instead of driving, they were able to land that helicopter, at least get some boots on the ground as far as the Sheriff's Department response as all of this develops and unfolds. Certainly, Bruce, I would agree with you. You have far more experience, but the tone and the stance, the posture of these SWAT members lead you to believe that if the suspect is in this white van, that he could be incapacitated, because you don't have any guns drawn anymore. The officers that were closer have moved back. The deputies and SWAT members that are behind that Bearcat, have their backs to the vehicle. It just leads you to believe that the sense of urgency has diminished a bit. And you wonder, how do they know that? How do they know what's happening inside that van?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And that's the posture that we're seeing from the SWAT officers and the general law enforcement in the area. The problematic part comes in now. They do have to make entry into that van. They do have to have paramedics, which are part of the SWAT team makeup, to go in and possibly render aid to the suspect if he is still alive, or even if he is, deceased. They still have to go do that. And the SWAT officers have that.
And we saw them use that drone, that Torrance PD used a drone to see what was inside the vehicle without getting too close with an officer or a canine at all. So that was interesting to watch the body language change right after using that drone.
Yeah, they may have seen something on the drone footage, which leads them to believe the suspect is incapacitated and or deceased in some way, shape, or manner. And so that is why the posture changed, as you just said.
And the timing is interesting because it lines up. It makes sense. I want to say it was probably about 90 minutes after the Sheriff's Department revealed that they were looking possibly for a white cargo van that they located this one, which gives agencies enough time for that be on the lookout to go out, for agencies around Southern California to look out for a suspicious white cargo van, and around that time, enough time for that information to disseminate to other agencies. That's when this van was located so many miles away.
Yeah, they put out a bolo, be on the lookout. It goes out agency-wide, all of Southern California, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they were about to put it out on the freeway signs also for the public to help them apprehend the suspect.
You have to assume that they had more than just the white van to pinpoint this one, because we said earlier, it's somewhat of a generic vehicle. There are so many of them. Earlier this morning from Air 7 HD, we saw multiple white cargo vans.
They need to get the show on the road. Come on.
The actual shooting that was still on
Call the
scene.
Undertaker.
So maybe there was a
Call someone.
license plate that was captured somewhat on surveillance that helped pinpoint that, yeah, this is the one we're looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. This just goes to the credit of investigators for the Sheriff's Department working with their federal partners and their local county partners of just how they got the information out so quickly and so accurately to possibly end this with this vehicle and the suspect.
Now, if the suspect is incapacitated in the van here, what is the next move that SWAT members will do?
Well, they have to go in. There's no way to candy coat that. That means that they will break one of the windows if it's not already broken, as what we talked about. They may deploy a canine into that window to rouse the suspect, so to speak, or to get a response, and then go from there. That canine will be supported by SWAT officers who are heavily armed, because the canine, I know people don't want to hear this, but the canine is a law enforcement tool. And there have been canines that have sacrificed their life in operations just like that for their handlers.
Yeah, we've seen that happen. It's equally heartbreaking, and a lot of people typically get upset about that. But
and we certainly hope that won't be the case here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they will have to make entry into that vehicle. Maybe they might use the third Bearcat to maybe rip a door off that vehicle, attach some sort of chain and hook to give them an operational viewing and area where they could possibly enter safely.
And Bruce Thomas, at this point, it's almost like nothing would surprise us. We've seen situations with prior pursuits with a suspect of tear gas and non-lethal or even lethal shots going into a vehicle. And we thought that the suspect must have been killed. And sure enough, the door opens and the guy walks out. That was a case roughly a month or two ago. So even if you think one thing, until it's done and in custody and that door opens, you just don't know for sure. Can you speak to that possibility, you know, until they open that door?
All right, we might have lost Bruce here, but again, we are waiting for new information in about 5 minutes or so with that press conference possibly happening at noon. Might give us a clearer picture of what's happening in Torrance right now with this scene. We are also hoping to find out, you know, who the suspect is and why they did this.
Sure, we have the photo of this suspect that has been identified. His name has not been released. There's that image again, 3 images, we believe, from the same location, just different angles of this suspect, an Asian man. Earlier in the morning, he was described as being up to 50 years old, and certainly looks like that age range would be appropriate. His name not released, and it's unclear, for what it's worth, which location these surveillance images came from. There were 2 locations of concern. One was the initial mass shooting location in Monterey Park at the Star Dance Hall. That was the first location. The second location was in Alhambra, where the suspect was apparently disarmed by patrons.
On Twitter,
we don't know where these images came
someone
from,
is saying,
but the alert went out that this is the guy they're looking
hold
for.
on.
And we'd like to bring in now former LA County Sheriff Jim McDonnell
On
on the
Twitter,
phone with us this morning. You are watching
someone
our
is saying,
coverage here
breaking news
of
update, police
this
are now
barricade
reporting
situation with
hazardous
the suspect
material
possibly in this
confirmed
white cargo van. What do
LSD.
you make of this scene unfolding?
LSD?
You know, I've been listening for a few minutes.
Okay.
I heard Bruce Thomas's assessment, and I would agree with that the posture taken by the Special Enforcement Bureau operators at the scene, the fact that they don't have the side doors secured, but they do have the vehicle secured, would indicate that a very strong possibility the suspect is inside, incapacitated. So as we watch this whole thing play out, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, both here at this tactical scene, but also on the investigative follow-up, looking for any additional information that they can get that could potentially tie any additional suspects into this case, and of course doing the very time-consuming and
Thank you, Roxy. We try to
investigative steps that
keep
are
it
so
that way.
important in
Thank you very much
today's
for observing that.
just a handful of years ago that would not be undertaken. The technical side, the computer side, the cyber piece to this whole thing, potentially, there's a lot going on. And then, of course, at the scene, all of the closed circuit TV cameras that might be there and other technical aids that they may have in place in the city to be able to help identify somebody who was at the scene and then be able to do an appropriate level of follow-up.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great recap on what we've been discussing throughout the morning, the social media aspect, the surveillance cameras, and we know that the Monterey Park area, and even where the shooting occurred, the building where the shooting occurred, we saw multiple cameras pointing down on the parking lot, on the entrance of that facility. Former Sheriff Jim McDonnell, this is, of course, a department that you led just over 4 years ago.
They're as good as you can get. The Homicide Bureau are among the best anywhere. Likewise, with the Special Enforcement Bureau, are handling the tactical scene, and Homicide Bureau is going to take advantage of all of the resources they have from a technical standpoint. The experts from the side of the crime scene investigation and follow-up, cyber experts. The beauty of being a large department and the largest sheriff's department in the nation is that you have resources available to you to do anything that can possibly be done to further the progress of the case.
Now, we've had a lot of agencies involved in this case overnight and through the morning hours. We've had the FBI also involved in this, and we see progress with this investigation and a possible suspect being apprehended within hours of this happening. Can you talk about the resources that are shared between these agencies and how helpful it can be in an investigation like this?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely critical. When you look at the county of Los Angeles, it's 88 cities plus all of the massive unincorporated areas. 42 of those cities are contracting the LA County Sheriff's Department for their policing services. But there's an awful lot of different jurisdictions involved in anything like this that happens, particularly when you have a particularly heinous crime like this committed with the suspect on the loose after the incident. Everybody focuses on this. There's a potential grave threat to the community and surrounding areas. So everybody, it's all hands on deck, and everybody's focused on apprehending this suspect, identifying, isolating, and apprehending the suspect. And as we see here, the federal resources, state resources, as well as all of our partner agencies in the region brought whatever they could to bear on this. And like you said, within a dozen hours, the suspect has been located, and that is playing itself out now there for a conclusion.
Sure. And for our viewers who are tuning in here on our live streaming coverage, the perspective of this being the fifth
Okay, it's not LSD like
this year, but the largest since
like the
Uvalde,
drug.
Texas last year. So certainly on the mass shooting scale, this is a significant one. Bruce Thomas was speaking minutes ago about the collaboration on the training side with these SWAT members. We have both Torrance Police, and then we saw moments ago a Bearcat and personnel from the Sheriff's SWAT arrive.
You can tell we're twisted.
How well does
True
that
crime folk.
collaboration work? How familiar are you with it?
Oh, yeah. No, very, very familiar. And the agencies do train together as much as possible. The three largest agencies in the county all have a SWAT team, LAPD, LA Sheriffs, and Long Beach, as well as many of the agencies that are more medium-sized. They also have part-time SWAT elements that they're able to respond to certain incidents in their own cities. And so we have people who put a lot of time, energy, and effort into being as good as they can be in the specialty. And it certainly does save lives. Their primary focus is to get to a scene, to try as best they can to isolate it, to ensure that there are no community members around the scene that are still in harm's way. They're evacuated. And then once they have it isolated and the situation under control from that standpoint, and then every attempt is made to de-escalate the situation, talk the suspect out of his position of advantage if he's barricaded, and be able to take them peacefully.
Yay for 6 months. Thank you, my love. Thank you for your support. It really means a lot.
In all of these situations.
And speaking about making sure that all the community members remain safe around this
Hey, bad
area,
girl.
we're just taking a look at some video here of that drone that they were using to monitor the vehicle. Can you talk about the technology like this drone that is so helpful when it comes to a barricade situation?
Absolutely. I recall back when I was sheriff in 2015, we introduced drones to be able to be useful to us in situations like this, tactical situations, in bomb squad situations, and in trying to locate lost hikers and missing persons in the Angeles National Forest area. And there was quite a bit of pushback at that time. And I think we've seen a transition in the public realizing the value that a drone can bring in being able to safely get eyes on a tactical scene, or in the case of an explosive device, the device itself, without putting our personnel in harm's way unnecessarily. In this case, a drone, I believe this is probably being operated by Torrance. Torrance has one of the premier drone operations that I've seen.
Yes, music. We showed the picture of the suspect earlier.
To patrol calls as well.
Little Chinese or Asian man, rather.
And have been at it for some time.
And
so I think we're going to see more and more drone usage throughout the United States.
Why are they flying it like that?
We see the value of being able to be able effectively to be able to get a view of what's going on, to be able in this
Oh,
case,
that's interesting,
possibly,
big girl.
to be able to look in the windshield or the side windows, and the rest of it is all you can see. Not available. It's all panel. It's a panel truck, so there's no windows in the back. But to be able to see if the person is inside, if they are, and what condition they're in before they approach personally. So I'm sure that they
Sorry,
have already
Juicy.
made their assessment based on the posture here, that they're now going to move methodically into a position where they can exhaust all questions as to the condition of the suspect, as well as other additional suspects potentially in this location. Once they do that, then they'll make the approach. If they were to see that there were additional suspects in the van, that certainly would change the whole posture, and it would become more of a potential.
Nurse Sandy, thank you so much for your support, my love.
You see the bomb squad
Means a lot. 9
just
months.
pulled up
Wow.
there,
Thank
and
you.
they're going to make sure then that the vehicle is not booby trapped in any way, and to again.
I really
look
can't
at
tell
all
you how much I
potential,
appreciate your support, guys.
outcomes
Honestly,
to
from the
this,
bottom
and
of
look
my
at
heart.
all possible
Thank you.
threats, and be able to run those to ground before they do the actual approach.
I was going to ask you about the response of the bomb squad unit that arrived on scene just a moment ago. Certainly, you see that, and you jump to the conclusion
He has to be
that
dead,
there
in
are
my opinion.
explosives,
I
but
can't
they
imagine
even
that guy being
do
standing
more
outside.
than just that, and they do
They're
work
like
in
that.
collaboration with the SWAT units. Is that correct?
They do there. We join them all together as part of the Special Operations Bureau or Special Enforcement Bureau, and they work together very closely, and particularly in situations where they have to breach a door in a location that's potentially barricaded, or to be able to effect a rescue in somewhere where they have to use explosives to gain entry. Certainly the expertise of the bomb squad is employed at that time.
It was also very interesting to watch the drone hover close to the van, but very close to the ground as well, checking to see all angles of this van to see if there was any possible planted explosives as well. So that was fascinating to watch the drone be a very helpful tool to these team members out here.
Yeah, it's very, very maneuverable. The camera set up on these devices is very clear, high definition cameras. And so they have an ability to be able to do a very thorough and quick assessment using these devices.
Yeah, and you spoke so well to the debate that occurred years ago when you were serving as the Los Angeles County Sheriff about drones. I mean, there was even outrage from some folks in the community about this with concerns.
No, Zen, it's okay.
That, drones were going to be
We're watching
our
it.
privacy and looking in our windows, and that is not the case.
Yeah, not at all. The only windows they'll look in are in a situation like this, whether it's a vehicle or a residence or a business, to be able to see.
We're having a good conversation anyways.
Situation at hand, and certainly if there is someone injured inside, they get that information, and they were able then to make it a rapid entry and be able to.
That would feel so weird, like being in a helicopter or plane and just landing right in the middle of like a boulevard, a street or something. They're weird.
In the situations where it's used appropriately.
Oh, absolutely. We got good perspective there just a moment ago from Air 7 HD on the broad perimeter that's unfolding here in this area of Torrance. Sepulveda and Hawthorne is the general intersection where this parking lot is located. Looking at everything that you're seeing in this coverage, do you think we are minutes away, moments away from them moving in? What are they waiting for?
Yeah, I don't have any specific knowledge or information more than you do at this point. But just watching the posture, they're going to take their time. It does not appear that there's any sense of urgency. They're going to do it thoroughly and make sure that every eventuality or potential is looked at and exhausted before they make that approach to the vehicle. And so as you see additional resources being brought into place, it looks like based on this latest one that they're going to be here for some period of time.
And may I ask you, correct me if I'm wrong, the Sheriff's Homicide Bureau, that is stationed within the city of Monterey Park. Am I correct? And if so, can you speak to
Thank
that
you, Beagle
community?
Mom, for your support. Thank you, my love.
Certainly, yeah.
Guys, welcome
Homicide
Sylvie
Bureau is based in the city of
Marie to
Monterey
the
Park,
family.
and,
Thank you,
and certainly
Sylvie
has
Marie.
that
Welcome to
attachment,
the Justin for
with
All
the local
family.
residents. So when
J
they
for
rolled
A.
out on this last
Thank
night,
you.
I'm sure this certainly had some special meaning
Now get
for
to know
them
your
being
brothers
so
and
close
sisters
to
in
their
here.
headquarters, but also the relationships that the Sheriff's Department and the Monterey Park Police Department enjoy with the community members in Monterey Park and the surrounding areas is a very strong one. And so earlier we saw the Chester Chong, the president of the Chinese Chamber of Commerce, out.
Yes,
And
Megan.
speaking to this
Megan,
issue,
I found out about that.
and
Yes,
certainly you can tell
I'll
by
look
the
at it.
way
I'll
that it's
show
being
people here in a little bit.
viewed by the
No
public
pulling
with
hair.
a
50.
tremendous amount of concern, quite a bit of fear, and the Asian American community has been through some very difficult times in the past couple of years. So again, this on top of all
Thank
of that,
you,
I'm sure
Karen.
is very shaking, very unsettling to the whole community.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of Asian Americans who are celebrating Lunar New Year this weekend, not just at Monterey Park, but at events all across Southern California, are very torn by this. They don't know whether to mourn or celebrate the Lunar New Year because of this shooting that happened overnight. We do know there was a few
Oh,
cancellations.
Denise,
The
thank you
Citadel
so
at
much,
Lyceum
honey.
canceled
That
their
means a lot.
celebration
Thank
in
you.
light of this and in respect
Thank you so
for
much.
those victims.
Really means a lot.
But
Thank you.
it's been the community has been shaken to the core and outraged from what I'm seeing online, that there has been, we don't know for sure if this was, the motivation, if it was a hate crime or if it was something more personal or a domestic dispute that has not been fully
Don't make me turn this car around, Megan.
This was a very heavily predominant Asian American community with 65% Asian American, and it really shocks them to the core when something like this happens, especially so close to that Lunar New Year festival, just a street away. But still so many questions as to why that suspect decided to shoot in that dance studio as opposed to the Lunar New Year celebration. Thankfully, he didn't. But this is just a tragedy all around, and the Asian American community is certainly heartbroken this morning.
Absolutely. A number of motivations have been put forward with this morning as to why this occurred. I don't think we'll really know until the investigation plays itself out in more depth. But from what we've heard,
You raised your hand, Bell. You can go.
That it is somebody who feels that they've been disrespected for whatever reason, and
Go to the water
they,
fountain
in their own
quickly.
way, feel that they're going to strike out at anybody potentially responsible, or even anybody who may represent somebody they feel is responsible in any way. And so when you try and look at these things, it's hard to be able to rationalize what happened because it's
I
not a
played
rational
that song,
decision,
Who Let the
obviously.
Dogs Out.
And so this
I don't know, like a
individual's
couple months ago for
background
my boys, and they thought it was the
all
funniest
of the
thing.
things that led up to this will be looked at in great detail as the investigation continues.
What is that process like, looking into the background of a suspect?
Yeah, well, I mean, and I don't know what the story is on this particular individual, but oftentimes, you'll look at somebody's social media history, you'll look at their presence online, what they've been involved in, what they're interested in, queries that they've made, web searches, but also communications with others, and have they expressed themselves in a way that was threatening? What could have been learned? What should have been learned? Who knew?
You're exactly right, Roxy.
What was going on in this regard? And so certainly, and I can't speak to this case, but one of the things you often look for is, was this person tied in with other people? Is this something larger than what we're seeing here in this individual case? And so all of those things will be looked at, and any leads exhausted in that way. And like you mentioned earlier, we have some of the best and brightest working on this case with tremendous amount of experience and the ability to work with our federal, state, and local partners in a way that I think could be a model for the rest of the country.
Yeah, on that note, not only as a former sheriff do you have that perspective to what occurs in Monterey Park, prior to that, you were the police chief in Long Beach, much like Robert Luna. And so you worked, I got to assume, in collaboration with Torrance PD, being a neighboring city there. So you're well aware of what they are capable of when it comes to these investigations.
Yeah, very true. In the county of Los Angeles, we have the Los Angeles County Police Chiefs Association, which brings together chiefs on a monthly basis to discuss trends, patterns, different things that you're seeing. but also the ability to be able to share resources and to be able to network. And when you need something, to have that type of relationship where one phone call will get you the resources you need to supplement your own. You can't deploy enough people for something that is a very big incident in any individual city. So it's so critical that we have the partnerships that we have throughout the law enforcement community. And I've been told by people from around the country and around the world that Southern California really leads the way in that collaborative approach to dealing with major crisis. We, fortunately or unfortunately, have a lot of practice in doing that with all of the various types of natural disasters and other major events that we have.
Thank you, Bless Lulu. That's
we have,
so true.
Some of the best and brightest, and they get to practice their trade on a very frequent basis. So, we're thankful to have this type of expertise here locally.
And I was reminded that prior to your time as LA County Sheriff and then the Long Beach Police Department, you also served with the LAPD. You've been all over, tons of experience. The Los Angeles Police Department, more than 9,000 sworn officers currently. Monterey Park has 75 sworn officers, certainly a smaller city of the 88 that you referenced in the county. That being said, what kind of toll does this put on a small police department? Clearly, we have the assistance from the Sheriff's Department this morning on the investigation, but there's still got to be a big weight on this department.
Oh, absolutely. This department, it is a relatively small area that is being policed by a police department of 75. But any given time, there's a small fraction of that number out and available on the streets to respond.
Right, 50?
So when this event happened last night,
pull him out, man.
Clearly overwhelmed and needed the support from surrounding agencies, the Sheriff's Department, and others, our state and local our state and federal partners as well. And everybody, no questions asked, when something like this happens, they respond. They get in, they get up, get in the car and head to work, and not knowing how long they're going to be there before they come home. They're going to be there until the resolution of the case, in an effort to be able to protect the community. In a case like this, as I mentioned earlier, it is so egregious, and you have somebody who has taken so many lives and hurt so many others, and has the ability to continue on that type of behavior. That person has to be identified very quickly and taken into custody to protect the community. And that's what everybody is focused on and very much committed to.
Absolutely. I wonder if you can speak to this. The Monterey Park Police Chief, Scott Weiss, I believe his name is, he spoke earlier during the 8:30 news conference, and he said on the record that this is not connected to the Lunar New Year festival that was ongoing in Monterey Park earlier in the evening. That event was scheduled to wrap up at 9 p.m. Granted, this occurred within an hour after the event, less than a block away. What do you think? Can you say it's not connected definitively, or is that kind of still on the table? You have to assume that there were people who maybe spilled from one event to the next event, and the proximity of the two is just so incredibly close.
Yeah, I mean, at first blush, you would assume that there would be a connection between the crime and the event, bringing so many people together in a relatively small piece of real estate. But Chief Weiss must have information that would indicate to him, to that level of certainty, that this was separate and apart from that, in order for him to have said that this morning. So there's a lot that they don't feel comfortable, I'm sure, going out with at this early stage in the investigation, but that they will speak to in greater detail later.
Okay, we appreciate your insight on this, Jim. We do want to have you on standby real quick, but we want to throw to our reporter who is on the scene right now, Eyewitness News reporter Sophie Flay, live at that scene in Torrance. Sophie, what can you tell us?
Irene, we just got here, but as you guys know, this standoff has been going on for over an hour. You can see behind me those two Bearcats sandwiching the white cargo van. You can't see the cargo van from this angle, but we do know, police have confirmed that the suspect is inside the cargo van. And LA County Sheriff Robert Luna just, about a half hour ago released photos of that suspect. And you can see over here, this has brought out a huge crowd. Sepulveda Boulevard and Hawthorne Boulevard, which is where we are right now, is completely shut off. They are just waiting for this suspect to either come out we don't know what is going to happen, but this has been going on for over an hour. The SWAT team is here, Monterey police, sheriffs, so many government agencies coming out here to try to get to the bottom of this and get a hold of the suspect. We will continue to update you guys as we learn more. Reporting live in Torrance, Sophie Flay, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
And Sophie, as you were arriving on the scene, for what it's worth, for the community impact here, there are street closures. There is a broad perimeter that has kind of been expanding over the last hour or so. Walk us through that. Was it difficult for you to get in? Is it causing, some disruption there on the streets as you're arriving?
Mark, absolutely. It was almost impossible for us to get here. So many of these streets are blocked off. There is yellow tape everywhere. There's, shopping centers around here where people are coming to park and watch this all unfold. So yes, it is very hard to navigate the streets here in Torrance.
Yeah, can you talk about the atmosphere out there when it comes to the community reaction? I know all morning we've been hearing about shock and confusion, but that was in Monterey Park. Now this is a whole different scene in Torrance. What you said, people are parking and watching. Describe the atmosphere and the reaction that you're seeing this morning.
People are absolutely shocked and devastated from the events that occurred overnight. You can see here people are parked. They're standing here. Oh, we are being asked to move right now. So
Get in your cars and move.
We're gonna move right now. You guys
go.
Sophie, we appreciate it. Yeah, understandable as that is a developing situation, perhaps a little too close to the developing situation there with that white van. That was Eyewitness News reporter Sophie Flay on the scene. And we've seen those images of the bystanders, the witnesses that are kind of in the different shopping centers taking photos, kind of watching what's going on. Law enforcement has to make sure anybody within sight of the incident needs to make sure they're back, because should there be gunfire, should that actually get to that state, it is a understandably very dangerous situation.
Absolutely. And we have been monitoring the response both here in Torrance and, as we were mentioning, in Monterey Park this morning. We had reporters
Don't
out
put
there
me
talking
on
to folks
the
who are just trying to
TV.
start their morning and waking up to this horrific news, just very confused as to what was happening, especially with that festival going on overnight. And they were expecting it to be another joyous day. But here we are facing another shooting
Move it,
in
Tuts.
Monterey Park. And they were very, devastated by the news. So it's something that we're seeing throughout Southern California, the reaction pouring in, not only in our region, but also across the world, hearing about this shooting, especially on a very, very prominent holiday for the Asian American community.
Still joining us live this morning for our continuing coverage as we stream here through our ABC 7 Los Angeles app is our law enforcement expert. I'm now being told Sheriff Jim McDonald, former Los Angeles County Sheriff Jim McDonald, still on the phone with us. Thank you for sticking with us on this developing situation as we move in there with that image from Air 7 HD. Not a lot of movement. Those SWAT members, former sheriff, are stationary, looking like they're waiting for guidance, waiting for the call to move in.
Exactly. Arrest him for the hat alone.
Is this a situation
I'm
where they're
offended.
analyzing that video? Can that video be viewed in real time? Do they already know what they've seen?
Yeah, they can do it in real time. Torrance, as I mentioned earlier, tremendous capabilities in that regard. So they were able to view it in real time and maybe going into greater detail, potentially looking to enhance the video they're looking at to get greater detail. Hard to know exactly what the weight is right now without more information, but clearly they have the situation in hand. The vehicle, and under any circumstances, is not going anywhere.
Stuck a grenade in his hat and called it macaroni.
If there is someone in the van, that they are in some way incapacitated and not the threat that they might have been previously. So I can't speak in greater detail to any condition or anything within.
Yes, it's a
they're going to exhaust
crime in fashion instead of a crime in passion.
Approach and open that van. That
it would stop the G7, so he would walk in the door like that. Oh my God, G7 would be like, what the fuck?
In the back, you have a lieutenant, a captain, and an operator discussing what is in front of them and what next steps are going to be on your feed. And so very familiar with the two gentlemen in the front there, not so much the operator, but they are among the best in the business. So confident that all the right things are being done at this time to be able to make sure everything is as safe as it can be.
I'm sure they're being very thorough.
Did y'all
but,
see
big
the
question
Chinese
for
New
many
Year?
people who are watching this
Hold on.
coverage. What will something happen in the next few minutes, or will it take a
Did
few
y'all
hours?
see the
We don't
Chinese New
know at
Year
this
where
point in
it
time.
was like the
And that's the
lion
same
and the
sort of
rabbit and they
mentality
put
we
them
also had
side
for the
by side?
investigation earlier in Monterey Park.
And
We
this was
have that
just like
entire
recently, last
street
couple
shut
days.
down, and the big question was, will
And
this be
the little
investigated for several
tiger,
hours,
it's like
or
the year
will
of the
this last
tiger
for
or the
several
rabbit.
days? Bruce
And
Thomas, our other
they had
law
them side by
enforcement expert,
side,
was
and the
mentioning
little
to us that
tiger
it could
ended up
take days
killing
until
the
that
rabbit
investigation
by
is
accident.
clear
Well, I
in
mean, not by
Monterey
accident, but
Park. The Alhambra
they didn't think
location,
that
in the
they didn't
meantime,
think the little
has
tiger
been
was going to go after
cleared.
And
the
former
rabbit,
Sheriff
and they
Jim
had two people
McDonnell, you
standing there, and
spoke
he
as
just
well
went
about what's
on
happening
live
behind
television.
the
It was
scenes
awful.
this morning. We have,
Oh my
a good
God, it was
perspective
awful.
between Monterey Park,
People
that
were like,
investigation, and then now what's happening here in Torrance on
it
the
was really
investigation
bad.
on the ground, which is certainly developing. But that behind the scenes effort, what's happening, in offices, using the computer networks and social media, that has to be incredibly large, maybe if not larger, to learn more about this suspect. Is it a race against the clock?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of people that you don't see. There's a number of people out at the scene, obviously, at both scenes or all three scenes.
All right, former Sheriff Jim McDonnell, I'm going to put you on pause. We have a news conference that's about to begin. We are going to join our viewers on air as well.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Good afternoon. We are interrupting our 2023 Australian Open Tennis Week 1 highlights. You can continue watching it on our digital channel 7.2. Check your local listings on how to access that. But right now, we go to this breaking news.
Law enforcement is giving an update on this deadly mass shooting in Monterey Park. Let's listen in.
Update you regarding the mass shooting that occurred last night. Sheriff Luna.
Thank you, Captain. As most of you were here earlier today, it's very important for our community to be updated on something as significant and tragic as this. So we're back up here, making ourselves available to you for any questions. I think
I wish they would remove that player information thing.
Morning,
Well,
we
sort of.
released a bulletin with a picture or an image of what we believe to be the suspect. We haven't named him. And there's a reason for that. We have a lot of resources in the Sheriff's Department, working with other agencies to make sure, again, that our priority, beyond taking care of the victims and survivors of this horrible incident, that we get this man off the streets. So I think that all of you have received this. I want to address also that there is a tactical incident that's occurring in the city of Torrance that is being covered. People have asked, is that your suspect? We don't know. As I said earlier today, we had a vehicle that was described as a white box van, I guess you'd say, a van of interest. And there's a van that looks just like what was described to us in the city of Torrance. It's a barricaded suspect situation. We are working with one of our partner agencies, the Torrance Police Department, to resolve that. We believe there is a person inside of that vehicle. We don't know their condition, but we're going to handle that in the safest manner that we possibly can. To try and identify that person. Could it be our suspect? Possibly. But at this point, if we're doing our jobs correctly, we're not only looking at that situation or scenario, but we're making sure that we're looking at any and every possibility. So I do encourage our community, if they have any leads, maybe they saw the picture of this individual, to come forward with any information that they believe may help us in this very critical and important investigation. That's going to be very important. I also want to talk about the victim survivor side of this. In response to our mass shooting this morning, a victim resource center has been set up at the Langley Senior Citizens Center located at 400 West Emerson Avenue. And I want to make sure that the appropriate victims, families, friends take advantage of that resource. There are many people behind me. Some of them will speak, representatives from different agencies, and there's so many parts to this, right? The response, the medical side of it. But as we're looking for this suspect, we will not forget the victims and survivors. And it's important because you can just imagine the trauma that they've experienced, and it's our responsibility to wrap our arms around them. So representatives from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the District Attorney's Office, and the District Attorney, George Gascon, is standing here with us. The Red Cross, the Department of Health Victim Services are at the center to assist the victims, survivors, and their families. If anyone believes their relative may be a victim, please contact representatives at this Victims Resource Center that I'm talking about. And again, if you think that you have questions, you're upset.
How about you
haven't
check
been able
his
to locate
license
a
plate
family
number? How
member
about
that's
that?
involved, please go out to this Victim Center and we will assist you. That's why we're there. At the center, we also have members from the Psychological Services Bureau, from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And as we go hour by hour, if we see any other needs, there are multiple agencies that have contacted us. Everybody wants to help, which is amazing in this time, because we need to depend on each other in difficult circumstances like this. So with that, I am going to turn it over to the next speaker, and I'll be here for questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Luna. And I also want to congratulate and actually give credit to the first responders, as well as our sheriff team and the city of Monterey Park, the chief of police, the many deputies, and as well as the DA's office, Mr. Gascon, and also to our elected officials that are here with us this morning representing the city of Monterey Park. I am, as you know, very heartbroken to hear of the news of what occurred with the individuals that lost their lives. But I think now we have to look at the victims, the survivors. And as the sheriff said, this is what the county does best: help provide assistance, mental health services, any kind of relief that is possibly and legally conceivable for us to provide. We are here to support all of the families in this community and help them in their healing. It's tragic what happened, but let's also think about the people who put their lives out there on stake every single day as well to protect us, our safety, well-being, and also our physicians, the ones that I can tell you of at LAC-USC that are right now treating at least 4 of the other victims there. I also want to say that they have also devoted their service to help providing protections for all of our residents in our community. The county's Office of Emergency Management has also been providing support and leveraging mental health resources at this very traumatic time, along with the city of Monterey Park, which, as you know and you can see, are very united and very resilient. Again, a heartfelt note to the families who lost their loved ones and to those that are recovering at this time. And with the help of the public, we can help to identify the individual that was behind.
They're going on lunch break, it looks like.
Good afternoon, everyone. You know, this was supposed to be a moment, a time of celebration. We're celebrating Lunar New Year's, which is such an important component of many communities around LA. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to express my condolences not only to the victims' family, but the entire AIPI community. My office has multiple roles in this case. Number one, by state law, we ran a mass casualty response unit.
Are they going up to the side?
This morning, we began to mobilize
Oh,
countywide
there's,
resources
is there no
in my
windows in the
office as
back?
well, in order to provide services to the victim's family and to the community. And this is work that will not only, it began today, but quite frankly, will go on for months and possibly years. You know, the impact of trauma from this event goes on for a very long time. I want to thank the Sheriff Department, Sheriff Luna, and the Monterey Park Police Department for the incredible work they have done. We've had also our own law enforcement component has been here since very early on, working first with the Monterey Police Department, and we will continue to do that with the sheriff and other partners. Clearly, depending on whether an individual is arrested, we will talk about prosecution at a later date, and that is appropriate. I also want to thank the U.S. Justice Department, our U.S. Attorney, who is here today with us. Again, this is a joint effort, and depending on what the conditions are, the Bureau of Investigation is also part of this work. But what I want to make sure that we get across to our entire community is that we are a united community. When one of us is attacked, we're all here together. And regardless of what the motive was for this horrendous impact, for this horrendous event, we will continue to work together. We're here with Monterey Park, with the San Gabriel Valley, with our entire community. And we're not only here today, we will be here every day until the work is done. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out right now, and I want to speak to the Monterey Park community directly. Our police department, our city continues to provide protective services throughout this incident. We work with our partners both on a county, a state, and a federal level, and try to resolve the situation as best we can and take our suspect into custody. The sheriff talked about the Langley Center. That's where our victim assistance has been set up. I asked that the partners in the press give those victims' families a little bit of space over there so that they can get information. You can imagine when they woke up this morning after the Lunar New Year festivals from yesterday, and they may not have found their loved one next to them in the bed or at home, and how that's affecting everybody in this community right now. I want to ensure everybody that as we get more information, we'll put it out as much as we can. And the Monterey Park Police Department is here as your partner in the community to keep it safe. Any information that people may have related to the incident, they can call the police station. We will try to get information out as soon as we get it. I have a lot of uniformed police officers that are out on the street. Every single one of them is committed to the community. And if someone in the community has a question, has a concern, is scared, that officer's out there to make sure that they're okay. And all they have to do is reach out and ask the question. I'm going to open it up to any questions. Thank you.
Sheriff, can I ask you talk about, and again, we know that you're limited in what you can say for a number of reasons. You talked about the situation in Torrance right now, and you said that you don't, is the suspect in? You asked yourself before, but you said it's possible. Is it also possible that the person who's in there, whether it's the suspect or not, is no longer alive? Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is a possibility.
Sheriff, are you aware of any one just heard any gunshots that would make people think that was a possibility?
I don't have that information here in front of me, but that's also possible. I stated earlier, it is a priority to apprehend this person. And we have a lot of resources throughout this entire region. And we believe if we're putting his name out, that will inhibit our ability to potentially arrest the suspect if he's out there, or maybe flee. So please be patient with us. You've been patient thus far. And this is why we're going to keep our word that we're going to continuously update you
because the community, I understand, they're thirsty for information. And yes, we did put his picture out, and that's because from a public safety perspective, we want people to see who this is and then give us any information that they may have about his wherabouts so that we can safely take him into custody.
Do we know if this individual was working by himself and the motive of the situation?
No, we don't. And we have to keep all those options open. Was he by himself? Were there other suspects? Our detectives are looking at every angle. And that's the important thing that good investigators do, right? They keep every option on the table until we know for sure what the motive was, who else was involved. And other than getting this suspect into custody, and providing the best case to either the district attorney or the U.S. Attorney's office. Our job is.
I mean, he has to be in the van. They ran into him. They're pulling back up again.
That has been
They're
laid
telling
out
each
by
other.
the suspect. So work in progress.
It's one of those options. Do you believe that this is a domestic violence situation and that's what you're trying to do?
We've been asked that, and we're looking at every angle. Whether it's domestic violence, the question was asked earlier about a hate crime. You have to leave the door open for any possibility until we understand who this suspect is, what his motives are, where he came from, what his intention was. At the end of the day, as a sheriff's
It
department,
may be harder for them to see because of the broken glass in the windshield. It's correct.
To our partners in the prosecutor's office. So
Roxy says getting lunch orders.
This individual to the full extent of the law. I don't have that information right now in front of me. We should be able to follow up with you on that as this incident goes on.
Sheriff, would you be able to confirm at this point that the suspect in the second location was in fact the same one who perpetrated this mass?
Yeah, Mitten Mama. Knock, knock, knock. Hello. Do you have a gun?
We believe it is.
You have a gun, sir?
I'm not confirming it 100% because, again, we still have to put this whole thing together. But the picture or the image that we're showing you is from the second location. And we believe that they are both connected. But again, we leave every option on the table. We have to leave it open because we don't want to focus on one area while someone else is getting away. So you got to be open to all of it.
For a while, by the patrons at Lai Dance Hall, what kind of weapon was recovered from him? How did he get away?
Earlier today, in regards to the weapon, I could tell you that it's not a high-powered assault rifle, but I don't want to get into the specifics on the weapon. In time, we will. Everyone will get exactly what that is, but I don't want to say.
Yeah, like she knocked on the garage Don's
more challenges
where he was working.
This person.
Hey, get out of here.
We don't know that yet. And for us, just like I'm
How about
saying,
this?
there may be one
Pull the
suspect.
cart, pull
We
the
think there's
vans
one,
away,
there may be more.
and if he
We
starts
also have to
driving, you
assume
know he's
there may
alive.
be more than one
And if he
weapon,
doesn't,
right?
you
We
know
may
he's
have
not.
recovered one. When we find him,
Maybe that'll
that
work.
doesn't mean
I
he's
don't know.
not armed and dangerous.
Sheriff, finally, can you explain to us then, since the last briefing, what is new other than the photo?
Well,
I mean, the update, you got everyone here. I'm just trying to ascertain if there's anything new other than the photo.
we have the photo that's new. There's the incident that's occurring in Torrance where obviously there's a lot of questions and concerns about that. That's the update that we have.
Nothing from that. You're not able to tell us anything from that. So I'm just asking if there's anything definitive that you can tell us.
I'm giving you definitive information now, and I'm giving you the information that we have. And I had a choice to sit back and not come out here and be available, or come out here like we talked about earlier. And every time we get even a shred of an update, to give you what we have, because there's significant public interest in this, as there should be. So if we call you out here in 2 hours, I'm hoping there's more information to provide because I want this solved as much as anybody out there does. We want to, this has been painful. Let me go over here.
Can you confirm the name of the two locations where the shootings took place?
I don't have that information in front of me. Yeah, typically I don't put out
Send
the
Bullhorn Betty.
just out of respect for the business. I'm sure as the day goes on, we'll be putting
Betty
down those
Strangler.
specific names of the businesses, because as you can imagine, if you're the business owner there and you had this horrible incident, they're traumatized as well. So
One more question. One more.
let me go over here. You know, it is normal that when we have victims of violent crime, we don't talk about specific hospitals. And I'm going to share just a quick story as to why we don't. Earlier, it may have been mentioned that they were at a specific hospital, and somebody called one of those hospitals to say something along the lines that they want to go and finish the job. That is absolutely horrible. So again, I don't believe that's the information. Please, these victims and survivors are dealing with so much. Let's not traumatize them more. So yeah, and be patient with us. And our Sheriff's Information Bureau will put out another time where we're coming out. And I hope to have even better information. But as of right now, that's what we have. And again, thoughts and prayers to all the families involved in this. It's a horrible incident for our county. So thank you very much.
You have been watching authorities address the latest in the mass shooting in Monterey Park last night. 10 people killed, 10 more wounded, and a search, a manhunt for the suspect responsible. Now, I want to show you this scene right now. This is actually in Torrance that you're looking at live, Hawthorne and Sepulveda. And LA County Sheriff Robert Luna did address this scene. He said this is a tactical incident. He was asked if the suspect is inside that white van. He said, we don't know, but there was a white cargo van of interest connected with their mass shooting suspect. He did call this a barricaded suspect situation. He says they believe a person is inside. They don't know that person's condition. You see the tactical response there. We are going to continue to follow this development and any other. And again, as authorities said, any affected families who are searching for questions related to this mass shooting can go to Langley Senior Center. It's about 5 miles from the scene at 400 West Emerson. That is in Monterey Park. We want to thank
suspect. They have not released his name. The sheriff did confirm that they have a name, but they did not want to put it out right now. We, of course, have the crew on the scene. That includes reporter Sophie Flay. Sophie has confirmed that we have the LA County Bomb Squad and Hazmat on scene as well as they investigate this vehicle before they move in any closer. And while that news conference was going on, we saw the LA County Sheriff Bearcat, that SWAT vehicle right there to the right of your screen on the bottom right, move alongside that white van to get a closer look. Look, it was right against the vehicle.
Yeah, we were watching that as that press conference was going on. We also want to go back out to our ground reporter, eyewitness news reporter Sophie Flay with the latest. We just heard that press conference. And Sophie, what are you seeing out there from your vantage point this morning?
Okay, we'll put Sophie on standby. We're not hearing Sophie's mic.
Oh, there
okay,
it is.
Sophie, go ahead. We hear you now. You're good now. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Mark, Irene, we are here in Torrance on Sepulveda Boulevard and Hawthorne Boulevard. Right behind me, as you can see, we can zoom in here, you can see that white cargo van sandwiched between two Bearcats, and like you said, another one kind of just moved in there. And we have just confirmed now that the bomb squad and hazmat team have moved in, and in that press conference, we learned that they're not sure if there are hazardous materials inside that cargo van, so they are taking all precautions, and everyone's here. I mean, Torrance Police, the SWAT team, LA County Sheriff, everyone coming together to handle the situation carefully and diligently, like they've mentioned. LA County Sheriff Robert Luna released photos, like you said, of the suspect not that long ago, and they are now just waiting here. As we mentioned before, it was impossible to get over here. So many streets blocked off, and so many community members have come out to kind of watch this scene unfold.
That Bearcat move through the area. It's on the move once again, and it has just been trying to survey that van. As you mentioned, we also saw the drone that was taking a look inside the windshield and around the vehicle. As you mentioned, Sophie, that they're erring on the side of caution because we don't know if there are
Thank
any
you, my love.
explosives
Thank you,
inside or
Behind the
around
Crowns
that
with Michelle.
vehicle.
Thank you
Sophie,
so
we
much.
appreciate your report
Everyone,
this morning
please
and giving us a
welcome
good
Annie
perspective
to the
of
family.
things on the ground there.
Say hello
And
to your
we do
brothers and
see this
sisters, Annie.
Bearcat
Thank
being
you.
very active. Getting very close to the driver's side of the van. We saw earlier that the window there was smashed, so it might have given them a clearer view of what's in the back of that van.
Yeah, that's a very interesting position that it's taken. In the moments prior to this, it was moving alongside of that van, but now kind of pointed right towards it. We have a reporter in Monterey Park, Leticia Juarez, on standby, but if we can hold, I think this image is worth staying on. Let's see, do we still have former Los Angeles County Sheriff Jim McDonald? Is he still with us? He is the director of USC Safe Communities Institute. He's been providing really important insight and perspective as to what we're seeing on the ground this morning here in Torrance for this part of the investigation. Jim, are you there?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. Oh, are we here?
Yep. Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm still on.
Okay, now this image that we're seeing, this Bearcat with the LA County Sheriff's Department, it's taken a different position, kind of pointing directly towards the driver's side window of that white van. You know how this process works. Tell us about what we're seeing, what could happen next. What does this all mean?
Yeah, they're using the Bearcat because they're in a position of advantage structurally that is as strong a foundation. They could put themselves in a safe position that should something happen, should somebody open fire on the vehicle, they're relatively safe in that position. So as they move forward now, they're looking to see everything they can see. It's a panel van, so you don't have the ability to look in the rear windows or any side windows. So they're trying to get as much information as they can by basically hitting this thing from every angle they can, to include the drones. And so as they go forward, if they can, they'll also be in a position with hazmat and the bomb squad out there to be able to try and obtain readings should there be any hazardous materials there, to be able to, in the parts per million, figure out, do we have an elevated level of any substance? And that's very helpful then in deciding next steps. So there's a lot of science goes on now that a few years ago was not possible, but they have all of that, at their disposal. So our hopes is that this is a safe position for them to be in, and that they can, as quickly as appropriate, be able to bring some resolution to this and
here we go, boys.
To the people who are at this particular scene, at least.
And we'll stop you right there. You may be on a slight delay. SWAT officers have moved in to the vehicle. They are at the door preparing to make entry. They have broken the passenger side window. That window is now open. They are potentially opening the door. There's about more than a half dozen armed officers right at the door. Perhaps the side door will be the next to open. We now have the passenger side door open. Guns are drawn as they are moving in on this vehicle. You got to assume they believe this individual is incapacitated. The fact that they are going inside first. He's reaching over, the lead officer, to the driver's side. He has moved the seat, and potentially this sliding door here on the side is going to open next.
Yes, they have their guns drawn. As you mentioned, the Bearcat on the other side of the vehicle, making sure that they are safe from that angle as well. But we're waiting to see what the officers will do next. They've just broken the passenger window, opened that side of the van, about to open the side door. They are all in position. One officer has just gotten into the passenger seat, and taking a look back there, it doesn't seem like they are on high alert.
I mean, the fact that he just went all the way
right,
inside the vehicle.
the body posture there, it seems like they are not seeing too much of a threat at this point in time, but they are, of course, still on guard. One of the officers still peering back there.
It's not a sliding door. The doors are opening.
Taking a look inside. And it's kind of hard to see from our view.
It looks like they're still looking even further back behind that door opening.
They're pulling something out, looks like a blanket of some sort.
And former Sheriff Jim McDonald still on the phone with us. We thank you for sticking with us here. I mean, we're watching as everyone is at these images. This was a barricade situation for well over 2 hours here in Torrance, the intersection of Hawthorne and Sepulveda near the Del Amo Fashion Center, now playing out live here on ABC 7 Eyewitness News, on air and online, abc7.com.
And this situation has been unfolding here in Torrance since roughly a little past 11 o'clock. So it's been almost a couple hours since we first saw this van swarmed by Bearcats and officers moving in. So they have been monitoring for the past couple hours to make sure that there were no threats to any officers. They had a drone circling this van for a while, checking for explosives possibly in and around the vehicle, for any movement inside the vehicle. We are still waiting to see and hear what is inside, if it was the suspect they have been looking for, if it is that suspect with another person possibly. We don't know at this point in time, but it looks like that Bearcat is moving away from the vehicle on the driver's side of the van.
Gosh, even with the posture, which was somewhat calm given all the circumstances, it was really tense to watch that, not knowing what these SWAT individuals would find upon opening the vehicle. You even have one gentleman walking away there. So we don't have the best vantage point to see all the way inside, including all the way in the back portion of that van, but it's still unclear if an individual was in fact located in that vehicle. They are continuing to comb through that vehicle. I was just so impressed by that initial SWAT officer who walked in through the front passenger side to get that door open. Clearly, they had some good information from the SWAT Bearcats that were there, had it pinned, and then from the drone that was looking in through the front dash. But still, it's a tense moment nonetheless. You just never know.
Yeah, you can never fully assume that vehicle is completely safe. But we did watch that officer break the front window, the passenger front window, and reach in, unlock the vehicle. It's very difficult to see from our vantage point what's inside the van, and we may not know for a bit of time what exactly they find, because they do control, law enforcement does control the information that is released to the public as they continue their investigation. So we are just watching all of this unfold live. Many people still reeling and outraged and emotional over the shooting that happened last night.
Absolutely. Jim McDonald joining us again. Again, he's been on the phone with us, director of USC Safe Communities Institute. You've seen the images now. I believe you were on a delay, but I'm sure you've seen the images now from Air 7 of those SWAT members going in. What do you make of what you saw?
Yeah, it appears from what we know that they approached, they made sure that, that what they had initially thought was confirmed. One of the operators then, as you mentioned, took the initiative to go in and be able to open the rear panel doors so that others could go in. There was one of the operators there with a backpack indicating that he was likely the tactical paramedic on scene. And so if there was a need to render aid, medical aid, there was an ability to do that immediately. That does not appear to have been the case. And that person also has the ability to be able to make a pronouncement as to whether that individual, if there is one in there, we don't know anything for sure at this point, but to pronounce somebody deceased as well, if that was what the circumstances dictated.
Sure. I got to assume, jump into conclusions from what we've seen here, that there are two options. Either the van's empty, or if there was or is an individual in there, that person is deceased. We can't see a person deceased from our vantage point. There's a portion of the van with no windows inside the doors to the left that they were searching. It's unclear if there is a possible person suspect in that portion of the van. But the law enforcement officers, those SWAT members, they have, in most part, stepped away. There still are some to the driver's side door side, but those team members have stepped back from the van. They've gone through the initial search of the vehicle. So there certainly was not a live suspect in the vehicle. If there was someone in that vehicle, that suspect is passed away. The other option is that they did not find anyone. That would be a major concern.
And again, we are still waiting to hear from law enforcement on an update on this. We in our last press conference that we heard from them, roughly about 45 minutes ago, we didn't have many updates on this situation. But they did say that the suspect that they had been looking for was possibly in this white cargo van because it matched the description of what they had been looking for throughout the entire morning.
Run this scenario by the possibility that the suspect was following the news updates and the alerts that law enforcement had put out that they were looking for a white cargo van, and it was ditched here. That certainly is a possibility, and that this is where the vehicle was found. That it matched the description, the possibility that they had the license plate and connect the dots on that. But after 2+ hours, maybe 3 hours here on scene at this location, they maybe have not found anything inside in terms of a suspect. Jim McDonald, that obviously is speculation, but everything has to be on the table. Sure. We can only see what we see.
And Jim, is that possibly why they are withholding some information?
Okay, new information. Hold on, Jim. There actually is a body. Yep. There is a body in the driver's seat of the van. We did not have a good we did not have good perspective on that earlier, and now we can see it. Of course, we're not going to zoom in, but I had eyes on it a moment ago, and there is a man who was in the driver's side slumped over of this van. Wow, what a development. Okay, speak to that.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if this was an abandoned van, they would have cleared it earlier, taken every precaution. But if there was no one in there, then the posture would have been different, and they would have continued doing the normal procedure for the investigation, the impound, and so forth. That didn't happen, and the reason for the delay was, as you now know, a suspect in the van and apparently deceased at the scene. And so when the press conference was held and Sheriff Luna mentioned that we don't want to jump to any conclusions, you have the van. It could be the right van and not the right suspect at the time. So there's a number of different options that you can't press a redo button if you don't get it right. So they want to slow things down. They want to take every precaution, but they also realize that when they have, in this case, the scene here again in Torrance, as well as Monterey Park and Alhambra, they have to exhaust all investigative methods to be able to capture what they can, because once you open it up, you no longer have the ability to go back and to be able to then complete the investigation. The scene has been compromised. And so they will take their time in moving through this investigation and follow up. And again, as we saw here with this white van, it was fairly clear, although you can't say that, it is speculation prior to now, that there was an individual in the van and that they were incapacitated. And that really dictated then what we were seeing on the scene, that you had, the SWAT officers there, but not in a high state of readiness. It was very clear to them probably from the beginning that this individual had passed and was no longer a threat. And that dictated the rest that we saw here on the live
Yeah, they probably spotted him ahead of time and were taking their time to assess if there were any other threats possibly with this vehicle, maybe bomb explosives or anyone else inside the vehicle. That's why they were out there since about 11 o'clock this morning. But wow, what a development in this investigation. You know, not even a day after that crime happened overnight in Monterey Park.
Yeah, just 12 hours after the shooting that occurred at 10:20 last night, in which 10 individuals were killed, another 10.
Okay, guys, he is dead. It appears he took his own life. There were reports that he was slumped over, but, you know, you don't know if it's rumor or not until you know for sure. So it looks like everyone is safe, thank God. However, you know, justice does not really prevail the way, you know, civilization, you know, and more particularly the families need it to. But it's just the way it is sometimes, unfortunately. He destroyed all these families. Yes, if this is indeed the guy, which they haven't confirmed that per se either. Guys, I will be back later tonight. I do have to go grocery shopping and get stuff ready for school and work tomorrow. So I will be back later tonight. I have a couple more stories that I want to talk about. So do me a favor and hit that thumbs up. Well, I'm glad I needed to get in touch with you. That was intense. I fixed the email issue. You should now have it. Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, my love. Appreciate each and every one of you. God bless you all. Please do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. And I will see you guys sometimes later today or tonight, rather, at some point. We'll be back. Love you all. Thank you all for the time here. Bye-bye.
Lost when I feel like nothing, always feel like I'm running. Both feel we're living worlds apart. It's fucked now, we lost in limbo. Remembering what you said though, and I asked you if we'd make it far. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt. I trust angels who fly away from you, and you told me that we'd never die. Gave me so many reasons why we were meant to be. Then she said no, 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 no. No, 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 no. You should. I've earned the cost and now I've paid it. Oh no, no, no. Oh please don't go. I know my face a memory erasing. Been a few years since I heard your voice, yeah. Lost a few here but it's not by choice, no. Girl, I see your face every day when I look through my phone. Can't delete all these memories, won't leave me alone. Hit my blind side, never saw you coming. You were so wild, but no, I was nothing. And I'm nothing now, nothing's changed. You know I'm just the same. Miss you now, but I hope that someday you explain. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt.